A small skill of carving insects. When the two monks in Yuanyingjing were releasing their mind to search for Yi Tian, they suddenly saw a spirit insect flying out of the sea. With their rich fighting experience, they immediately determined that Yi Tian's invisible position was there. Both of them ignore Yi Tian's spirit insects. The Dark Friar of Yuanyingjing gives a cold hum. With a gesture, a flash of white light has reached Yi Tian's invisible position. It turned out to be a small sword with a length of only 3 inches. The body of the sword was white, and it was not ordinary. The sword flashed by and passed through the sea without any barrier. It was obvious that Yi Tian had changed his position, and this blow had failed. The Dark Friar of Yuanyingjing couldn't help but let out a slight cry. His face changed, and his momentum broke out again. He was much stronger than before, and his eyes flashed a dignified color. According to his idea, even if the sword fails to return, Yi Tian's moving track will be felt. Although Yi Tian is invisible, he can't see it with his eyes and can't detect it with his mind. However, this sword really exists and doesn't disappear out of thin air. As long as a person is still there, as long as he changes his position, the air will fluctuate when he changes his position. This monk wants to feel the fluctuation of the air, so as to judge Yi Tian's moving track and determine which direction he moves. However, his idea is now in vain. How can he think that Yi Tian's perception of the nature of the wind has reached the peak, and how can he cause the air to fluctuate with his intention? At this time, although Yi Tian's position was not detected, the 2 groups of clematis that he sent out had already reached the 2 monks. Unfortunately, although the clematis had extremely strong biting ability, it was weak in front of the strong breath of the monks in Yuanying realm because of its lightweight and small body. Before they rushed to the 2 monks, they were thrown more than 10 feet away by the powerful impact force. After several somersaults in the air, they stabilized themselves and gathered together with flashing wings. Somewhere on the sea, invisible Yi Tian saw the scene before. Although he had some regrets in his heart, he didn't have too many accidents in his heart. These 4th-order clematis, which have been mutated, should have no suspense of winning in the face of the friars of Jindan realm, but they are still too weak in the face of the friars of Yuanying realm. Moreover, the other side was also 2 monks in the late Yuan dynasty, far from being comparable to the ordinary monks in the early Yuan dynasty and the middle Yuan dynasty. Although the ants don't seem to have been injured, this is the limit. Even if too many of them are released, they can't work in a short time. Unless Yi Tian ignores the life and death of these clematis and adopts the tactics of Insect Sea to let all clematis go up and kill them. After consuming the mana of 2 Yuanyingjing monks, he may pose a threat to them in the end. However, even if Yi Tian is faced with such tactics, there are many ways to kill a large number of Tian ants, not to mention the other 2 Yuanyingjing monks. These clematis are all the treasures of Yi Tian. They can't suffer too much for the sake of the 2 unimportant monks in Yuanyingjing. Even though there are many 4th-level monsters in his spirit beast ring, Yi Tian doesn't use them at will. In fact, the 2 Yuanyingjing monks are invincible. No matter how many 4th-level monsters there are, they can't kill Yuanyingjing monks. At most, they are outnumbered. When they are tired of it, they turn around and leave. But with their speed, the 4th-level monsters can't catch up. After all, the difference of realm lies there. Just when Yi Tian wants to put away the Tian ants and leave the 2 monks in Yuanyingjing. Unexpectedly, the dark-faced monk of Yuanyingjing suddenly broke out a terrible wave of mana, and then a golden statue appeared behind him. De Diao flapped his wings and looked extremely fierce. His whole figure was 3 or 4 times bigger than that of the dark-faced monk. Especially with his eyes, he looked around. When he got to the invisible position of Yi Tian, he gave a groan and no longer looked away. Jing Wuqiu. Yi Tian looks at the big carving and mumbles to himself. Although he has never seen this person, the memory he got from Jiang Wei's soul searching has an impression of him. Jiang Wei had never seen this dark-faced monk, but he knew some legends about him. He got the soul of the powerful golden eye god carving by chance. After practicing the ancient secret method, he became the Dharma image of the golden eye god carving. It is not only very powerful, but also can realize the function of the source eye through the golden eye, which can see what ordinary friars can't see through the naked eye. It's just that it takes a lot of mana to cast the golden eye statue. Maybe because of this, he didn't use it at first. So thinking, until now, Tian has determined that the other party must have found his place. What's more, the opponent's actions have verified Tian's conjecture. When the golden eye god carving locked Tian, the dark-skinned monk's body also flashed straight towards Tian, and suddenly a black sword of semi-immortal soldier level appeared in his hand. Originally, even if the other party saw through his hiding, as long as Tian released Dun Tiansuo to leave here, the other party was helpless, but Tian suddenly thought of another message about this person. This man has 16 Banxianbing level short swords, and his sword array is extremely powerful. Although he is a late cultivation of Yuanyingjing, he has killed many monks at the peak of Yuanyingjing or even half-step into the divine realm by virtue of the sword array. He made a name in Langsan Lingyu, and he was one of several families. He was a child of the Jing family and had a good reputation. Although Jiang Wei never met him, he had a lot of information about him. Because of these information, Tian didn't leave in a hurry, but his eyes flickered in thought about it. When the friar was flying towards his body, Tian suddenly felt cold and had made a decision. In the face of the fierce man, Tian didn't dodge or leave. Instead, he drove the fierce sword and met him in a flash. The two men's bodies quickly approached, and in a twinkling of an eye, when they were less than 5 zheng apart, Tian once again inspired a Yuan baby sign. At this time, in the moment of stimulating Yuan Ing Fu, they were less than 2 zheng apart. Under Tian's mana, Yuan Ing Fu turns into a glittering palm, which turns into a foot in the blink of an eye and pats on the man. The speed of the golden palm was too fast, as if it had been printed on the other person as soon as it appeared. Although the monk felt the extremely dangerous breath, he didn't even have time to dodge, so he had been patted into pieces by the golden palm and turned into a piece of red light. The friar with white complexion was originally following him. Suddenly he saw a sudden change. His companion was killed by Tian's powerful talisman. His face changed. He reached for a piece of corpse and turned to flee. Tian raises his eyebrows and reaches for the black sword flying in the air. Then he quickly sends out his idea and takes back more than a dozen of them. Then he releases Dun Tiansuo and drives the treasure to the friar. Under normal circumstances, the man would have escaped, but he had snatched half of the corpse, which was the right hand of the dark friar, and his Shumi ring was on his finger. The reason why Tian spent a Yuan Ing Fu to kill this man was that he liked his 16 Banxian sword array. As a great friar in Yupu realm, Tian knew the power of sword array. The sword array was not the sum of the attack power of 16 swords, and its power was beyond ordinary words. To put it this way, first of all, it's very difficult to refine flying swords to form a sword array. Not only the requirements for refining materials are very high, but also the requirements for the depiction of rune patterns are also very high. Sword array is equivalent to a moving field. The power depends on the specific sword array. But there is one thing, as long as it is a sword array, it definitely has a very strong power, especially this sword array is composed of 16 flying swords, and its power is by no means comparable to that of ordinary sword array. Moreover, Tian had seen this man release a small sword before, and knew that it was absolutely not any product. How can Tian let his companions take away Zumaji? The fair-skinned monk of Yuanyingjing sent his companion's stump to Shumi ring. At the same time, he took out a message and quickly inspired it. At the same time, under the cover of divine thoughts, he saw that Tian's speed of controlling Dun Tiansuo was so fast that he couldn't help changing his face. He urged the flying sword under his feet, and Dun Guang fled to the sky. Whoosh! No matter how fast he is, how can he catch up with Tian's Dun Tiansuo? Dun Tiansuo, who is equivalent to the half-step spirit realm friar's full speed of sword defense, just caught up with the friar with a flash of light. By this time, Tian had seen that he had sent a message, and had no intention to take other tactics to deal with him. Another Yuan baby talisman was inspired, and the same golden giant palm appeared. With terrible pressure, the golden light flashed on the monk. No different from his companion, the monk of Yuanyingjing could not resist the full blow of the half-step monk of Xinjing. His body was immediately shot open, and the same flesh and blood flew to the boundless sea below. Tian's eyes are always fixed on his right hand and his Shumi ring. Among the many stumps, he locks the right hand. His figure catches up with him in a flash. He reaches out to take the right hand in his hand, takes off Shumi ring and throws the stump into the sea. The next second, Tian has activated a small moving sign. With the light gate around him, Tian enters and is sent out. After Tian left, in less than 3 breath time, a ripple flickered in the sky, and then out came an old man with wrinkles on his face. A gray linen, gray hair, 2 long eyebrows hanging upside down, eyes extremely cold. This man appeared at the place where the fair-skinned monk Yuanyingjing was killed. His eyes were wandering around, his nose twitched slightly, and then his gesture moved. Suddenly, a water column erupted from the sea below, and there was a decorated body in the water column. The old man took the remnant body into his hand and took a slight look. His eyes were even colder and looked around. After staying for a few breaths, his 2 long eyebrows trembled. It was obvious that he was very angry. Then, his momentum burst out, and the magic waves visible to the naked eye spread around him, and the air around him was distorted. Even the sea water below burst out into the sky, and the waves almost spread to the surrounding 5 or 6 miles. Until all the waves fell again, the old man released his mind again and looked around for nothing. Then he gave a cold hum and disappeared. At this time, after the transmission, Tian found himself still in the sea, surrounded by endless waves. After several times of transmission, he did not know how far away he was from the coast. After careful observation, he released his mind and found nothing unusual. Then he released 4 heartworms to stay near the sea. He jumped into the sea and dived to the bottom of the sea. The sea is very deep. I don't know how long later, Tian finally fell to the bottom of the sea, but he didn't stay for half a moment, and continued to use the earth to escape into the bottom of the sea. After deep into the sea, Tian took out the big seal magic weapon, created the space, released the space-time tower, and flashed into it. Tian. Brother Tian. Qin Luotian and Er open their eyes from the cultivation and welcome them. It's urgent now. We'll talk about it later. Tian Lu Micro explained then took out just got the Shumi ring, began to check up. After some inspection, no suspicious smell was found on it, which should be that it was not finally imprinted. After a quick examination, Tian didn't have time to see what was in it. He quickly found out the dark-faced monk's Shumi Jia. After a careful examination, he didn't find any trace. Tian finally took a long breath. As long as these 2 things don't have tracking breath, it's unlikely that they will have tracking marks on other items. I think that all a monk can leave his body, and only Shumi commandment can't. It can be said that all his wealth is on Shumi commandment. Unless he dies, he will not give Shumi commandment to others. But this is not absolute. Just as Xuanyu recruited himself through Xianyin Stone, the monks used various means to track him, which made him defenseless. Tian didn't give up the pursuit. He began to check the monk who was killed at last, because he inspired the messenger. If someone came to find him, he must trace his whereabouts. Even if 2 people's original life jade slips are broken, then it doesn't matter who to check first and who to check later. Tian just glanced at this person's Xianyu and didn't see the existence of the best Xianyu. As for the large number of ordinary Xianyu, Tian didn't have much interest. He mainly checks each other's magic weapon, and is the highest level one. If there is a trace mark, it is his main magic weapon. In Shumi commandment, there are some top magic weapons, as well as a flying sword of semi-immortal soldier level. Tian took it out and checked it again, and found no abnormality. He himself had no interest in the flying sword, which was nothing special, so he put it back after checking it. There are also some jade bottles and stone boxes and so on. If they are packaged in this way, they are basically pills and spirit materials. If Tian is most interested in these things at ordinary times, he must check them carefully. Today, however, Tian just takes a glance and puts them back. The rest are some mineral materials, some monster materials, and some personal clothes. Tian Chao checked it again, and then turned his attention to check the dark complexion of Zumaji. The idea of God penetrated into it, and Tian couldn't help but get a light in front of his eyes. It's not because of the number of fairy jade in it. On the contrary, he didn't find a piece of fairy jade in the range of divine sense. It's because he saw the little flying sword that he wanted to get most. Those flying sword are as like as two peas in the 4 rows, each row has 8 handles, the style, length, color and the process are the same. Only the inscribed lines on the blade are not the same as the flying sword. Tian took out a handle at will and felt it for a while. He didn't trace the breath either. But he was not at ease, so he took out 32 flying swords and checked them all, but there was no sign of trace mark. He was completely relieved of these flying swords. From Jiangwei's memory, he learned that there were 16 flying swords in this man's sword formation, but there were 32 small flying swords with different runes in Xu Mi Jie. The two were not consistent, but Yi Tian was in a hurry and didn't have time to explore them carefully. After a close look at the picture of the heart worm in my mind, I found that the sea was covered with clouds, and the sea was rough, just like before I entered the sea. Even though they were scattered in the sky tens of miles away, they also found no sign that they could, let alone any monk. Yi Tian's heart just put down a little bit. The White Friar sent the message to the Great Friar of Yupu Kingdom. At that time, if he sent it to a friar of Huashan Kingdom, he would not be able to quench his thirst. When the reinforcements of Huashan Kingdom arrived, everything would be over. However, we cannot rule out the possibility of asking for help from the monks of Huashanjing. If these two monks do not have the great monk of Yupu realm as their backing, they can only ask for help from the monks of Huashanjing whose realm is lower. Either way, Yi Tian is not so worried. If the target of the call for help is the Great Friar of Yupujing, after such a long time, the one who should have come has already come, and has not found here yet, it means that the other side has lost the direction of tracking. If the target of the rescue is the monk of Huashanjing, Yi Tian doesn't care anymore. When the monk of Huashanjing comes, he can activate a small moving rune and leave here. He doesn't have to worry at all. It's just that Yi Tian is very painful to spend every little moving talisman. After all, he has spent so much in Lansung Spirit Realm. There are still 12 spirit realms in the future, and no one can predict what will happen. Move your attention away from your mind, leaving only a wisp of real-time monitoring. With a gesture, Yi Tian takes out the black sword from the Dark Friar. The sword looks dark and simple, but it feels very heavy. Take a closer look. Yi Tian feels that this kind of black looks familiar. His heart moves. Tian Yuan's eyes shine through when he looks at the black sword carefully. Sure enough, under the light of Yuan Tian's eyes, Yi Tian saw countless white lines, which were full of Xianin stone. Although there are some accidents, Yi Tian is not in the mood to study deeply at this time. Originally, Xianin stone has the function of refining tools. There is no accident in refining black sword. He is most concerned about the trace mark. After careful examination, this Banxianbing flying sword has been excluded. However, in the process of examination, Yi Tian found some small traces. The Xianin stone in this sword is actually newly refined. It's just like refining the fierce flying sword several times and adding different materials. It's not the first time. After finding this problem, Yi Tianxin's doubts are easily solved. Originally, he had just discovered that there was Xianin stone in this black sword. He thought that someone had discovered the existence of Xianin stone in Lanshan Lingyu and used it in refining tools. However, according to the current situation, it is likely that after the appearance of Xianin stone at the auction, the monk who sold the stone sold it to this person as a tracking item. Who would have thought that he had refined it into the flying sword? Judging from the refining situation of this sword, it is obvious that a Xianin stone was not used. I just don't know what's different about the flying sword with Xianin stone, but Yi Tian is not interested in experimenting for the time being. All he can do is wait until he is sure there is no tracking information. Continue to check the items in Xumi Commandment. Yi Tian found the obvious difference between the two monks in Yuanying realm. The White Friar had only one flying sword. Besides the 32 flying swords and the black swords of the sword array, this dark monk named Jing Wucai had 4 magic weapons of the level of semi-immortal soldiers. In addition to 2 flying swords, there is also an axe and a fork-shaped magic weapon. From the fact that these 2 magic weapons were not refined into Xianin stone, Yi Tian can guess that the black sword must be a magic weapon that Jing Wucai often used and preferred. After careful examination, no abnormality was found, and no trace of trace mark was found. At this time, the picture in my mind suddenly appeared a light of escape, flying in the sky at a very fast speed. Yi Tian suddenly stood up, then went out of the spacetime tower, closed the tower, and paid close attention to the picture in my mind. If the other party found himself, he was ready to leave the ground. However, the light seems to be just passing by. It flies by more than 10 miles away from Tian's underground position, and soon disappears. He is also a monk of Yuanyingjing. Tianlu pondered, but he continued to use Tuduan and left here. After walking through the mud at the bottom of the sea for tens of miles, he stopped. The picture sent back by Liang Xingkong shows that the monk never showed up after he flew away. It's very likely that he was just passing by. If the other party really found themselves, I'm afraid that when passing by, they will take a look at them intentionally or unintentionally. However, it is not. Tian quietly observed the underground stealth state for nearly half an hour, but there was still no abnormal situation on the sea, so Tian was relieved. Even if there is something on the two monks that has a trace mark and is sensed, they have to go underground to find themselves. I have reached the peak of my understanding of earthly Taoism. I have more advantages in the underground than in the air. If no one can sense the trace breath, if he wants to find himself, he can't do it unless he has the same magical power as his own heavenly eye and can go deep into the underground. In short, deep into the sea, they have a great advantage, but in this dangerous period of time, they cannot easily go outside. Then Tian took out the big seal magic weapon again and rebuilt a space. He still took out the spacetime tower and entered it. How's it going? Tian's figure has just appeared in the time and space tower. Qin Luotian and Er meet him nervously. Seeing Tian go out in a hurry just now, they know that there must be a very urgent situation. It's so urgent that they don't even have time to tell them. Tian said with a smile, "It's nothing. It's a false alarm. Now it's okay. I killed 2 friars before. I was worried that the friars of high level would trace me to my place. It's okay." Qin Luotian's face was much better, and then he took Tian's hand and said in a soft voice, "I know it's very difficult and dangerous to return to the Earth Star. We have to keep a low profile in everything. Don't kill people easily. I'm worried about you, and I'm in a low level. I can't help you." Tian smiles bitterly and shakes his head. "It's not that I want to kill people, but now I have been arrested by a side branch of the Xian family. Many monks want my life. In order to protect themselves, I have to defend myself. The world of practitioners is so cruel. If they are not strong enough, they will be killed. That's why I let you and Er work hard here. If Xiang can help me, you and Er will concentrate on hard work, and I will provide you with enough pills. As for the problem of taking pills to improve too fast in unstable state, you and Er can learn from each other here. When you are strong enough, you can help me. What's more, you don't know what's going on the earth now. If your strength becomes stronger in the future, it will be useful. And Er, do you want to surprise your mother and all the people in the temple when you see them in the future, and exclaim that your strength has improved so fast? Of course, I must surprise them. In fact, my strength has risen a lot now." Er immediately said excitedly, "Now she has been promoted from the early stage to the late stage of the sea view, and the speed is terrible. Qin Luotian is even more abnormal. From a little white who practices, he has broken through the pills refined by Tian all the way, and now he has reached the middle stage of the sea-watching realm, which is only a little lower than Er. When I first entered the time and space tower, Er was already in the early stage of the sea view, while Qin Luotian was just in the cave, which was even more amazing. Tian, don't worry. I spend all the rest of my time on cultivation except you come in. I will improve my strength as soon as possible. What I want most is to fight side by side with you. No matter how dangerous the situation is, I want to protect you by your side. So, I'll do my best." Qin Luotian also nodded and said solemnly, "Well, I believe you. Now you continue to practice. I have to deal with some things. We are busy with our own. We must not disturb your practice because of me." Tian said with a smile, then looked at the picture in his mind, and sat on the futon with his knees crossed. Take out again Jing Wucai's Shumi ring, and Tian continues to check it. This person's Shumi precepts are well organized. Except for some magic weapons and personal clothes, the rest are collected separately with other Shumi precepts. In a prominent position, Tian sees 7 Shumi commandments in it. Then he took out one. Tian branded it with divine thoughts. After probing into it, he found that there were some jade slips, which should be skills and secret arts. Tian doesn't have much interest in Kung Fu. As for the secret arts, Tian doesn't have the energy to continue to learn. He originally wanted to put this Shumi commandment away, but then he thought about it. This Jingwuchip has been refined into a golden eye divine carving. He should have his own secret arts, which can be understood. Tian had practiced Fa Xiang in his previous life, but he was not so powerful. When he was attacked and killed by the 8 monks, Fa Xiang was broken, and he could not escape. Therefore, if you can cultivate a powerful Dharma form in your life, you can make yourself more powerful. When you think about it, Tian's thoughts swept through the jade slips one by one, and finally chose an old jade slip with dark color. You can see that it took a long time to spread to today's jade slips. After taking it out, Tian pasted it on his forehead and began to read the contents. With the information read inside, Tian showed a strange expression, random lips slightly warped, could not help laughing. This jade slip is not about the secret art of condensation. It's about the sword array that Jing Wucai practiced. The name of this sword array is very domineering. It's called Mitian sword array. According to the jade slips, this Mitian sword array can be divided into 2 types, the big Mitian sword array and the small Mitian sword array. Xiaomission sword array is a sword array made of 16 swords. The arrangement of this sword array is simple. It is not as complicated as the great Mitian sword array, and it is easy to control. But the disadvantage is that its power is far less powerful than that of the great Mitian sword array. If you want to control the Mitian sword array, you not only need to have extremely strong mana, but also need to have a strong mind. Moreover, you must master the skill of using the mind very flexibly. It also involves the requirement of the accomplishment of distraction. In order to arrange the Xiaomission sword array successfully, it is necessary to separate 16 thoughts and control 16 small swords accurately at the same time. Only in this way can the sword array be successfully arranged and give full play to its power. However, the arrangement of Domitian sword array requires a higher level of divine thoughts. It is necessary to separate 32 divine thoughts and control all 32 swords respectively. Only in this way can the Domitian sword array be constructed. In the jade slips, there is no detailed description of the power of the Xiaomission sword array, nor the power of the Domitian sword array, but a very simple and clear comparison between the 2 sword arrays. In contrast, the Xiaomission sword array is as powerful as a firefly, while the great Mitian sword array is as bright as the moon. Xiaomission sword array is like the water of a stream, a trickle, while Domitian sword array is like the waves of the vast sea. It can be seen from this that how far is the gap between the Xiaomission sword array of 16 swords and the Domitian sword array of 32 swords. According to Jiang Wei's memory, this Jing Wucai can only use 16 small swords to arrange a powerful sword array. Even he didn't know there was a difference between Xiaomission sword array and Domitian sword array. It is obvious that the sword array arranged by Jing Wucai can only be Xiaomission sword array, which can be used by him to kill the monks who are half-step into the divine realm. How powerful the great Mitian sword array will be can be known by comparison. But on the other hand, Jing Wuchip has reached the late stage of Yuanying realm. With his cultivation, he can only arrange Xiaomission sword array. We can imagine how difficult it is to arrange the sword array. In the jade slips, there is a detailed introduction of which 16 swords should be used to arrange the Xiaomission sword array, the position of each sword and how to drive it. The 16 swords that Jing Wuchou placed in front of Shumi Ring are used to arrange Xiaomi Tianjian array. The principle of Dimitian sword array is similar to that of Xiaomitian sword array, but it is undoubtedly more complicated and abstruse, and the operation that needs to be controlled is more complicated. Moreover, Xiaomission sword array is only an attack-type sword array, while Domitian sword array has 2 kinds of changes, attack sword array and defense sword array. If the 2 can operate as they please and attack and defend naturally at any time, it is definitely an extremely powerful mace. It just seems that it's not as easy to master the Domitian sword array as you think. The contents recorded in this jade slip made Tian happy. After reading the whole piece, he used great patience to persuade himself to let go of the impulse to study and comprehend now. Instead, he put this jade slip into a Shumi ring and properly collected it. Because no matter from the time or timing, now is not the time, the most important thing is to check whether there is a trace mark. But he didn't restrain his curiosity and took out another jade slip from Jing Wucai's Shumi ring. The color of this jade slip is also dark and old. It seems that it has a lot of years. Among all the jade slips, only this one and the one that records the sky-sweeping sword array seem to have accumulated traces of years. However, the other jade slips are obviously bright in color. When you look coldly, they are only hundreds of years old at most. The jade slip was pasted on his forehead, and Yi Tian had a rough look. It was exactly the content of how to condense the Dharma phase. Yi Tian didn't look at it carefully, so he took the jade slip away and left it for later study. According to Yi Tian's conjecture, these two jade slips should come from the same ancient relic and belong to an ancient monk. The two jade jain is like his two peas and even the same style. It seems that this chance is not small. Put away the Shumi ring with jade slips. Yi Tian takes out 6 other Shumi rings. God covers them and looks at them one by one. No trace was found either. Up to now, Yi Tian is completely relieved. It seems that he is safe for the time being. He took out a Shumi ring at will, and Yi Tian made a mark of his mind. Xinyan probes into one of the Shumi rings. Yi Tian accidentally sees dozens of fist-sized black stones, which are Xianin stones. Yi Tian's heart of joy, carefully counted, not many, exactly 32. Is it for refining 32 heaven-handle sword array? Yi Tian can't help frowning. He knew that magnetism was not suitable for the 32 swords. If it was refined by Jing Wucai, he would destroy this set of Mitian sword array. However, these Xianin stones are cheap. Yi Tian also collected these Xianin stones, and then looked at the third Shumi ring. There are a lot of fairy jade in it. Yi Tian roughly estimated that at least 1 million pieces of them were piled up neatly. Yi Tian was not interested in Xianyu, so he quickly took away Shumi commandment and continued to check the rest of it. When the rest of Shumi precepts are finished, Yi Tian has more knowledge of this Jing Wucai. There are spiritual materials, pills and many kinds of materials in those Shumi commandments. In one of the Shumi precepts, they are all Shumi precepts. There are at least hundreds of them, and many of them contain the property left by the original owner. This is enough to prove that at least hundreds of monks died at the hands of Jing Wucai. It can be seen from this that Xiaoxumi's sword formation is really powerful. It can kill so many people, and it can still live safely until now. It can be seen from the dangers he has encountered. Yi Tian doesn't look carefully at those Sumi Jia who are the spoils of Jing Wuji's war. He believes that even if there are important things in them, they have been sorted out by this man. What he leaves behind are all unimportant things. Yi Tian doesn't care. After pondering for a moment, Yi Tian observes the pictures in his mind, takes out the jade slips that record the Mitian sword array again, sticks them on his forehead and begins to understand carefully. As time goes by, Yi Tian studies word by word, and his understanding of the sword array is getting deeper and deeper. He found that the Mitian sword array actually seemed to be tailor-made for himself. It was created completely according to his own conditions. The distraction needed to set up this sword array is exactly what I am good at. By practicing the alchemy left by Kongming Stone Monkey, Yi Tian's divine power is far more powerful than that of the monks in the same realm, even more powerful than most of the monks in Jingdan realm. This is the most basic prerequisite for the formation of Mitian sword array. It is very difficult for ordinary friars to control 16 or even 32 small swords accurately with one person's mind. In alchemy, there is the function of cultivating distraction. When Yi Tianping was controlling the insects, he had used the technique of separation for countless times, and the degree of distraction was perfect. The 36 swords in this heaven-sweeping sword array are much more than the number of spirit insects. It seems easier to say. Xiaomission sword array. Soon, Yi Tian understood this array, understood the mysterious principle of various rune patterns on the small sword and the relationship between the rune patterns when arranging the sword array. Yi Tian felt that the array was not as complicated and difficult to manipulate as the jade slips said. After deducing the Xiaomission sword array several times in his heart, Yi Tian is confident that with his current mana and divine strength, there should be no problem in arranging this sword array. Later, Tian continued to understand the demi-Tian sword array. The number of swords used in this array is twice that of the Xiaomi Tian sword array, and its complexity can be imagined. It not only requires each sword to occupy its position accurately, but also the key lies in the induction between the runes of each sword, so as to stimulate the field of defense or attack, the change of each sword when the array is arranged, and the conversion of attack and defense. Tian reasoned over and over in his mind, looking at the 36 swords in front of him, and according to his own mana and divine strength, he created a virtual Domitian sword array, and created a virtual enemy to play the sword array game. Once, twice, 3 times in the end, Tian didn't know how many times he had deduced in his heart. The more he deduced, the more he felt that the demi-Tian sword array was profound and unfathomable. Among them, all kinds of magical functions not mentioned in the jade slips were gradually understood by Tian. Gradually, Tian felt more and more nervous at the beginning, and finally he was sweating. From the attack array and magic array, Tian sensed another change in Domitian sword array, that is magic array. Maybe it's because it's hard to control the magic array, or maybe it's unnecessary. The original owner of the sword array didn't mention it. He only mentioned the last sentence of the jade slips: the magical functions of the sky-wide sword array are infinitely changeable. Those who have the chance will understand it, and those who don't have the chance will guard the treasure mountain. Maybe there is a hidden meaning in it. Tian didn't really arrange the Metian sword array in the time and space tower. One reason is that the space is too narrow. Even if the arrangement is completed, it can't achieve the expected test effect. Another point is that Qin Luotian and Ear are close to each other. When they don't have a thorough grasp of this sword array, Tian doesn't dare to try it easily, and no one dares to guarantee whether there will be any accident that will cause accidental injury to them. Time goes by bit, and it passes quietly in Tian's deduction after deduction. Even Tian doesn't know how many days have passed. Until the end, Tian is familiar with this sword array and knows some details very well, so he doesn't give up. According to his own estimation, with his own mana and divinity, he can set up the big Xiaomi sword array. However, due to the limitation of mana, he can only set up it for a short period of time, and then his mana will be exhausted. Because there are 32 short swords, 32 complicated runes on the body of the swords are inspired, and the demand for mana is very high. It's just like the flag of Skylock array. It needs powerful power to maintain its operation after sending it. The flag of Skylock array can supplement its power with the best fairy jade. It needs the monk's own mana to maintain the operation of the Metian sword array. It can be said that once the Metian sword array is triggered, it is like a black hole that is constantly devouring the monk's mana. Even so, if the person who arranges the sword array has insufficient mana, I'm afraid even the shadow of Domitian sword array can't be arranged. It's no wonder that this monk named Jing Wucai is famous for his 16 swords Xiaomishan sword array. Maybe he can't easily arrange the great Metian sword array even with his power strength in the later period of Yuanying realm, or even if he can arrange it, it can't achieve the degree of freedom, and can't maintain the long-term operation of the sword array. It's really a treasure. Tian exclaimed with great surprise that this set of Metian sword array was his biggest harvest since he entered the Lansang spiritual realm. Playing with a short sword in his hand repeatedly, Tian then gently put it down and put 36 short swords in front of him one by one. At a certain moment, he made a mental move, and the 36 small swords suddenly rose from the ground, and then quickly became smaller, turned into 36 stars, and entered Tian's elixir field to nourish them. Yuanyang magic weapon was originally something that could only be done after entering Yuanying realm. Tian had already become Yuanying in his previous life. He was very familiar with this kind of operation, so he could break through the limit of realm and do these things in advance. Through the cultivation of magic weapons, we can achieve the unity of heart and sword, which is easier to operate and faster to arrange sword array, but this operation has a fatal disadvantage. After the unity of heart and sword, people and sword are equal to a whole to some extent. If the flying sword is injured, people will also be hurt. Tian infers that Jing Wuchou did not have these swords. In this way, when arranging the Xiaomishan sword array, there must be some discount in flexibility and power. After putting away the sword, Tian Lu takes out another jade slip with ancient color, which records the Dharma phase, and studies it carefully again. At the beginning of reading, he always had a light expression. With the deepening of reading, his expression began to be dignified, frowning and meditating from time to time. Occasionally I close my eyes and feel it. Then I raise my eyebrows slightly and my eyes shine with a touch of surprise. Tian cultivated the Dharma phase of an ancient tree in his previous life. This Dharma phase is derived from the spirit of an ancient tree. After refining, he cultivated the Dharma phase body through secret methods. Its most important role is to improve his perception ability of wood properties, and provide continuous vitality when he needs it through the spirit of the ancient tree. Later, Tianzai thought that his ability to reincarnate and realize the time reversal might have an inseparable relationship with his concise ancient tree method. But Ningyao didn't condense any Dharma form, only a wisp of ghost was left. Because he is very familiar with the refinement of Dharma, Tian Kai knows the value of the jade slips in his hand. Although the process of refining Dharma phase in previous life is difficult, the principle is very simple. It is to take the essence of ancient trees and then refine it directly through secret method. However, the method recorded in this jade slip is rather complicated, which is not only the process of refining, but also the treatment of the soul. This method can also directly condense Dharma phase by using the essence protoplasm, but it is absolutely not powerful enough. To condense a powerful Dharma phase, we need a strong essence. What if the obtained essence is not powerful enough? In other words, the spirit that has been obtained is already very powerful, but what if we want to make it more powerful? This jade slip records two ways to strengthen the soul. One is the cultivation of Dan medicine, the other is the phagocytosis of Zhuangde. The cultivation method of Dan medicine is very simple, which is to make the spirit stronger and stronger through Dan medicine. It takes a long process, not overnight. However, the phagocytosis and expansion method has the possibility of quick success, as long as there is enough soul to phagocytize the soul that needs to refine the Dharma phase. Generally speaking, the refined spirit will retain the original body of the spirit of the natural powers, devour the rest of the types of spirit. This power will always fade, and even the situation of chaos. However, one method introduced in the jade slips can avoid this situation, that is, to get rid of the ontological consciousness of the engulfed soul and make it become a pure soul without any original talent. The best choice is to devour the spirit of the same race. In this way, we cannot eliminate the ontological consciousness of the spirit, but also make it powerful through the cultivation method of pills. In this way, the devoured spirit can not only fuse quickly, but also make the original talent more powerful. Of all the ways to strengthen the soul, this method is the best. In addition, the method introduced in the jade slips is quite different from that of Tian. It turns out that Tianing's Dharma form is controlled by the method of divine branding, which is very simple. However, the method recorded in the jade slips is really completed by melting the spirit of the friars into a part of the spirit of the Dharma form. The advantage of doing so is that even if the true body of Dharma phase does not appear, the spirit of Numenon and the spirit of Dharma phase will merge into one, and the monks will display the magic power of Dharma phase. In addition, the advanced method of Fa Xiang, which Tian did not know before, was recorded in the jade slips. In the previous life, in the square-inch spiritual realm, when the Dharma phase was cultivated, what strength was it? The later Dharma phase will stay at this strength forever, but will only become weaker. Through the introduction in the jade slips, Tian knows that even after refining the Fa phase, there is still a chance to make the Fa phase transition more powerful. This method is through the same kind of strong essence body of the blood feeding method, or with non-similar blood feeding method. If it is not the same kind of essence, it has a high requirement for essence, at least higher than Dharma phase essence. Tian didn't know about this kind of thing. He devoted himself to the study of Dan Dao and didn't study the Dharma phase too much. In other words, in the square-inch spiritual realm, there was no such advanced method for the refinement of Dharma phase. Therefore, it gives people a kind of established understanding that the condensed Dharma phase should be like this. What excites Tian most is that the jade slip finally introduces that this method is not the only way to refine the Dharma phase, but also can realize the coexistence of multiple Dharma phases without affecting each other. In this way, Tian's heart immediately became active, and an idea quietly formed in his heart. It's better to travel thousands of miles than to read thousands of books. After putting down the jade slip, Tian suddenly sighed. If he didn't come to Lan you, how would he know this way to refine Dharma? Although Tian doesn't have the conditions to condense the Dharma phase, and he doesn't have the right spirit, he has made up his mind that he will condense the Dharma phase after he gets the powerful spirit of the 7th and 8th level monster if possible. And it's not a common 7 or 8 level monster that can be easily condensed. It must be a monster with powerful talent. It's just like Jing Wuchip's Golden Eye Divine Carving Dharma phase. Although it has powerful talent and function, it seems that Jing Wuchip is not perfect. When you need to use the Golden Eye, you need to show the real body of the Dharma phase, and you need to use a lot of mana to achieve this step. It's really a shame to the Dharma circle. Put away this jade slip, Tian showed a thoughtful look. Since the essence of the Dharma phase can be strengthened in different ways, what about the soul of Ziyun Dragon as a sword spirit? Is it possible to grow in this way? However, it is impossible to find a more powerful soul than the 8th level Purple Cloud Dragon with his current cultivation level. Unless there is a big chance, this way is basically blocked. But the soul of Ziyun's sword soul is not complete now. It's still a remnant soul. If you can find more pieces of the remnant sword, you can use it to grow up gradually. If you don't find all the pieces of the remnant sword, it will make its soul complete and play a greater role. Even if it's the ghost of Xianlong, Tian doesn't dare to use the essence and blood of other demons to strengthen Ziyun's sword soul. Although he has only nearly 5 levels, he was originally 8 levels. Tian is not sure whether this will affect the sword soul. Put down this idea, Tian pondered for a moment, observed the picture of Liang Xingkong in his mind, and there was still no abnormal situation. This time, Tian didn't know how long it took for him to comprehend Tian's sword formation. It was estimated that 4 or 5 days would take him. No one came to him for such a long time. He was sure that no one had found his place. He felt more relaxed. Look at Qin Luo God in the air. They don't know when they are in the state of cultivation. Tian doesn't disturb them. Instead, he directly gets up and leaves the time and space tower, and then puts it away. Then Tian released a magic weapon of the cave, calling out 4 dead men, including Yuanzi and Lu Xing. The 4 people looked at the big square underground space, and their faces were dignified. If it wasn't for the emergency, I'm afraid Tian would not summon them here. There is no danger at the moment, but it is likely to come at any time. I've been offered a reward by the side branch of the Xian family. Maybe tens of thousands of friars are looking for me to kill people and get treasure. So, if I'm alone outside, the goal will be obvious. I'll call you out just for the convenience of going on the road together. In this way, I won't be too eye-catching. If you are in danger, you are always ready to enter the cave, and I will deal with everything. Seeing the meaning represented by the look in the eyes of the 4 people, Tian simply explained a few words. These words embarrassed Lu Xing. They are the dead men who come to protect Tian, and their realm is much higher than Tian. However, Tao is now reduced to the point that he can only go with Tian to cover up. When he encounters danger, he has to hide and let Tian deal with it by himself. I can't lift my head. In addition to Yuanzi and Lu Xing, the other 2 friars, Zhang Zhouhan and Du Zhirua, looked at each other. Yuanzi came forward and said, Holy Son, we are all experienced in many battles, not to mention our strength. Holy Son has seen it in the previous 2 moves. Even if we are in danger, we should fight first. How can we be a turtle? After listening to Yuanzi's words, Tian said with a laugh, You are so thoughtful. It's not that you don't believe in your strength. It's just that those friars have too high level and too strong strength. Some of them are in Yuanying realm and some of them are in spirit realm. Once they meet with each other, they can fight. If the strength gap is too wide, they have to run away. In terms of realm, I'm not as good as you, but in terms of running, maybe you can't catch up with me, the holy son of Longmen. Yuanying Jing? Transforming the spirit? The 4 of Yuanzi were stunned and speechless when they heard that. According to Tian's words, they all realized that they would not even have a chance to run if they were monks in Yuanying and Huashan states. But Tian could escape from the pursuit of the monks in this realm, and his strong degree has exceeded their imagination. But next, Tian's words almost surprised them. Yi Tian Dao, although we killed 2 monks in Yuanyingjing, it's because of this that we are worried about being tracked down. We have to be more careful in our next actions. Son, do you mean you killed 2 monks in Yuanyingjing? Lu Xing, who has a strong figure, stares and asks. Yi Tian said with a smile, it's true. You don't have to be surprised. I can't do it with my real strength, but I have all kinds of means. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But this kind of means against heaven can't be used very often. When you meet the friars of Yuanyingjing again, you'd better listen to my instructions at any time and deal with them carefully. Yuanzi, Lu Xing and others just showed a sudden expression, thinking that it's no wonder that if he naivete killed Yuanyingjing monk by virtue of Longmen realm cultivation, it's absolutely a terrible thing to hear, and it can even overturn their understanding of realm and strength. Even so, it also made them admire Yi Tian. The name of Xingzi in the past was a little heavier in their hearts. Such strength, not to mention the first Dragon's Gate Saint's son, even the Golden Elixir Saint's son may not be able to do it. No wonder Alliance leader Yen Lai values Yi Tian so much. As the highest leader of human friars, Yen Lai's vision is beyond their comparison. Yi Tian explained that the next thing he said was to use the technique of sound transmission. As he said this, Yuanzi, Lu Xing and others nodded their heads repeatedly. In the end, Yi Tian asked, I mean, you all understand? Yes, everything is as the sun says. Yuanzi and others nodded. Well. Yi Tian eyebrows a pick, exposed the expression of a query. Yes. Yes. Everything is what you said. Yuanzi quickly took the lead and said it again. Yi Tian nodded with a smile, this is good. You should remember that in the future, our words and deeds may be related to the lives of many brothers, so we can't make any mistakes. Yes, I will do everything according to the instructions of the young master. Yuanzi and others Su said again, specially changed the name of the son to child. Yi Tian nodded, waved his hand and said, this is the bottom of the sea. We'll go out in a moment. When we get to the top of the sea, we'll care about it again. With that, Yi Tian put on a new suit of clothes, and even changed his hairstyle. When everything was ready, he moved and took the lead in applying the technique of earthly escape. A group of people out of the sea, came to the sea, continue to show water escape, has been out of the sea, each control the flying sword into the air. Yi Tian's mind moved and called the 4 animals back to his heart. He held them and sent them into the spirit beast ring. Yuanzi 4 people see this scene, although in the heart some curiosity, but did not ask anything. Yi Tian told them to keep it in mind. From now on, the relationship between them has become a master-servant relationship. Everything has to show that they have known each other for many years. If you want to make a play, you must act like it, otherwise it's easy to be seen through. After a few people stop on the sea, Yi Tian releases his mind. After observing, he chooses the direction where the 2 monks from Yuanyingjing come and flies forward with a top-level magic sword. For Jindan dead left 2 people, right 2 people, make the appearance of retinue, closely follow Yi Tian. At this time, the dark clouds in the sky became more and more thick, the waves were surging, the sea breeze was strong, and soon there was heavy rain. Dark clouds, torrential rain and surging waves set off the atmosphere. At this time, Yi Tian did not use Huarong technique, but appeared as he was. It's very easy to be seen and doubted if Huarong is used again. When Yi Tian came to Lansanlingyu, he used Huarong all the time since he went to Lanfeng City. He never showed his true colors, and only showed his true features when he entered the Time Tower and cave. So he guessed that any other friars may not know their true appearance, so they no longer need to use the dubious Huarong technique to do some silverless things here. Not long after flying out, Yi Tian's mind finally finds something through the rain. Ladies and gentlemen, there are friars ahead. Deal with them carefully. At the same time, Yi Tian told the 4. Yuanzi, Lu Xing 4 people smell speech open mind a little observation, but nothing, did not find Yi Tian said the friar. Just as he was about to ask, a monk suddenly appeared in Yuanzi's mind. Then, the other 3 also found out. The 4 of them took back their thoughts and continued to behave like servants, following Yi Tian quietly. At this time, Yi Tian has secretly grasped a fist-sized Xianyin stone in his hand, pretending to be looking for a reward. After a while, the 6 friars' bodies finally appeared in the sky. Obviously, the other side also found Yi Tian and others, and their bodies flashed to this side. Yi Tian didn't want to pay attention to these people, but unexpectedly, the 6 friars stopped in front of Yi Tian and his party. From the appearance of these people, Yi Tian has already judged each other's realm from the speed. All 6 of them are the cultivation of Jindan realm, 3 of them are the peak of Jindan realm, 2 of them are the later stage of Jindan realm, and a middle-aged man who looks younger is actually a half-step cultivation of Yuanying realm. When the other side stops, Yi Tian naturally stops, and the 2 sides stand at a distance of 45 zhang. Yi Tian glanced at the Xianin stone in one of the monk's hands and asked, "What do you gain from Taoist friends? How dare a monk and longmen be worthy of our Taoist friends? Who do you think you are?" A friar with triangular eyes and an obvious crooked nose glanced at his mouth and said with disdain, "There is such an unwritten agreement between the monks, which is commensurate with the monks after the realm. When a low-level friar meets a high-level friar, he needs to be called by his predecessors. When a high-level friar sees a low-level friar, how to call him follows the mood of a high-level friar. It can be a fellow, a friend, a doll or a young man. In a word, the rule is the rule. As long as the state is high, the rule can be rewritten or even re-established." Yi Tian was a great friar in Yupujing in his previous life. Naturally, he had the pride and dignity of a great friar. Except when he had to hide his identity, he would call others his predecessors. In other times, he was basically commensurate with his friends and peers. For Yi Tian, this is a very natural thing, and there is no need to explain it. This kind of address itself has released a very friendly signal. However, the other side spoke rudely. Yi Tian's face had sunk down. He took a look at Yuanzi around him. Yuanzi immediately understood Yi Tian's idea, so he came out of the crowd and said coldly in his voice, "Everyone, good dogs don't get in the way. Several of you stopped the way for no reason. My son has good words to ask, but you are full of Pisces. Are you really bullying our Yi family?" As he spoke, Yuanzi made a gesture and showed his Banxianding flying sword. Lushing 3 people are also the same action. The figure moves to protect Yi Tianhu in the back, the body bursts out awe-inspiring murderous gas. Yi family? The friar was robbed by Yuanzi. He couldn't help but look suffocated and didn't know how to answer for a moment. However, the youngest half-step monk of Yuanying reached out his hand and stopped the Triangle Eye monk from continuing his culture. After a little recollection, he said faintly, "What the hell is Yi family? Those who dare to talk to the Jing family like this are rare in Lantong Lingyu. Today you will pay for your arrogance, and all of you will stay here." With these words, he glanced at the magic weapon of the half-immortal soldier in the hands of Yuanzi and others. His body shot up, and he grabbed Yuanzi with a pair of empty hands. When he did this, the other 3 monks in the Golden Elixir realm also acted at the same time. Each of them found a dead man in the Golden Elixir realm and showed their own top magic weapon to kill the generals. The other 2 monks in the later period of Jindan Kingdom did not move, but stood aside to watch the battle. Obviously, they are confident in their partner's methods. At this time, Yi Tian really wanted to see how effective the 4 Jindan dead men were, so he stepped back and watched the battle. They have their own right and left. These monks in the Golden Elixir can never hurt Yuanzi and others. His way of doing so just shows the identity of a child. The son of 1,000 gold, who is sitting down, will be killed by the guard. As soon as the 2 groups met, they were in a white-hot state. There was no sign of fierce fighting. In the outbreak of mana, there was already blood spatter in the swordlight. In addition to Yuanzi and the half-step monk of Yuanying realm, Lu Xing, Zhang Zhouhan and Du Jirua have all succeeded in killing each other's 3 top monks of Jindan realm. The speed surprised Yi Tian. In the same realm, he was able to kill in seconds, which is worthy of Yan Lai's careful provocation. Almost when the 3 monks were killed, the 2 monks who were watching the battle in the Golden Elixir realm just now changed their faces. Then they burst out and flashed to Yi Tian. They didn't take out any weapons, but just grabbed Yi Tian alive with bare hands. In their eyes, Yi Tian is just a monk in Longmen realm. If they want to take Yi Tian, either of them will be captured by hand. It's the first time for the 2 men to fight against a monk in Longmen. but now Yi Tian, the 4 top monks in Jindan realm, are too tough. They know that this time they are completely miscalculated. Only Yi Tian, who looks like the master, can save the whole army. And only 2 people are around Yi Tian can avoid being killed by Yi Tian's guards. It's just that neither of them can imagine that Yi Tian, who seems to have only the cultivation of Longmen realm, is actually the strongest of the 5. As soon as they reached Yi Tian, they did not see how the young man in Longmen realm moved. Then they saw a cold light flying out of each other's dantian. Then they became dark and lost consciousness forever. At this time, Yi Tian's fierce sword has been called back to the dantian to continue to accumulate. In less than a breath, Yi Tian killed 2 monks in the later stage of Jindan realm. At this time, Lu Xing, Zhang Jiuhan and Du Zhirua rushed to Yi Tian to rescue him. Clean up the battlefield. Yi Tianhan said to them carelessly, then turned his head and looked at the place where Yuanzi was fighting with the monk. At this time, the friar had already taken out a half-immortal flying sword to fight with Yuanzi, but Yuanzi had the upper hand, and it was only a matter of time before he won. What happened just now has changed the psychology of the 2 monks whose strength is not much different. Yuanzi sees that his side, apart from him, has already won. Even Yi Tian himself has killed 2 people, but he still fights with the other side. He feels embarrassed. The hand unconsciously added some strength, a sword cold light hua turned into a large sword shadow to cover the other side in it. However, the half-step monk was in a panic. He knew that he would never win today. He was thinking about how to leave the regiment and leave here. At this time, under the continuous offensive of Yuanzi, he didn't even have the opportunity to send the messenger. If he was a little distracted, he knew that blood might spill on the spot. Up to now, he has been extremely regretful in his heart. The 2 groups of people who had no grudge and no resentment, but because of their sudden rise, have evolved into the present situation. No matter how powerful the Jing family is, they will all be killed by each other in the future, but they can only achieve revenge. The loss of the Jing family today can no longer be saved. In his heart, when he was shocked and regretted, Yuanzi's breath suddenly burst out, and another half-immortal flying sword was released by him. However, this sword was more fierce than the previous one. When the friar was too busy to deal with the first sword, the cold light flashed to the friar and swept away. The monk was surprised, and immediately released a shield to block his footwall position. But just a little distracted, the flying sword hovering over his head fell on his shoulder and cut off his left arm. With a groan, the man was about to escape in pain, but unexpectedly, the flying sword that attacked his footwall had broken the shield, and then the cold light cut between his legs. One of his legs had already left his body and fell to the sea. But Yuanzi's body was already in a flash at this time, and his right palm, which was ready to go, was slapped on the monk's dantian with a bang. Yuanzi cut off his 2 legs and 1 arm at that half-step. Under the pain, Yuanzi's body shape was one of them, and the mana transfer was far less flexible than before. Yuanzi's body shape was as fast as a ghost, just like a gust of wind and a ray of light. Then the friar felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen. As if the dantian had been opened a gap, the mana suddenly tilted out and condensed for many years. The golden elixir waiting for the baby to break the elixir also cracked and turned into a lot of debris. My accomplishments. The friar just felt that the sky had stepped on him. He screamed in despair. He couldn't believe that the scene was real. But what he said below did not come out anymore. Yuanzi had already clapped his hands on him, which made him unable to move. It was also an extravagant hope that he could even make a sound. Young master, I've kept you waiting for a long time. The next moment, Yuanzi has a grasp of the friar's shoulder, came to Yi Tian. According to the child's command, this man left alive. It's true that this person has reached half the level of Yuanying. You can capture this life in such a short time, which shows that you have extraordinary strength. If I didn't ask you to save this person's life and kill him before, the time should be reduced by half. Take his Shumi precepts by yourself. Yi Tianpa nodded his head in satisfaction. He was surprised. Before, these Jindan dead men made 2 moves, but they almost defeated each other in seconds. As a result, Yi Tian didn't see where their combat ceiling was. Up to now, he has finally found out that each of them is no less powerful than half a step of Yuanying. It seems that they can be used in some occasions. Yuanzi was not polite either. He took Zumaji from the monk's right hand and asked, "Do you have anything you need?" Tian nodded slightly and said, "I need spirit material, or I can refine pills for you in the future. There is also a kind of small black stone, which is in my hand. If there is one, just collect it for me. Don't worry about it. You should keep it by yourself and give it to me later." Of course, this is not for Yuanzi alone. The other three have already cleaned up the battlefield and come back. All the 5 Shumi commandments have been taken back. Yuanzi and others nodded and looked at Yi Tian. They didn't know what the son would do next. Yi Tianfen finished, but he reached out to the friar and put it in the spirit beast bag. Then he released the magic weapon cave and let Yuanzi and others go back. After the 4 of Yuanzi went in, he put away the magic weapon cave and disappeared from the original place. At this time, in a cave which is not far away from here, an old man with his eyebrows down is meditating with his knees crossed. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes and shot out 2 terrible lights. Then he made a gesture, and a messenger appeared in his hand. Laozu, the 5 sons of Jingwuxiu, Jingwudi, Jingwujian, Jingwadeo and Jingwakan, whose original jade slips were broken, have fallen into the southern sky of the Songhai Sea. The whereabouts of Jingwuwei who went with them are unknown. There was an anxious man's voice in the messenger. Ah! All of a sudden, the old man clapped his hand on a jade table beside him. With the power of his clapping, a piece of smoke and dust burst up and turned into a pile of stone powder. The diffused stone powder fell, and the old man was gone. The next moment, the vast sea, the waves, the old man's body has emerged again. In the low air closed eyes for a moment, the old man has disappeared from the original place again, appeared in the sea dozens of miles away. With his gestures, a surge of water broke out from the sea, rushing out of the water waves carrying a body into the sky. The old man stretched out his hand and let the sea water fall, but the body was already in his hands. No way. The old man looked at the man's face full of horror when he was dying. He gave a cry of pain, and his long eyebrows kept shaking. Then, he continued to move, with waves rising again and again. The bodies of the other 4 people were also salvaged by him from the bottom of the sea. After collecting all the corpses, the old man took out a message sign and inspired it. He said, "Summon, all the Jing family's children will withdraw. I can find the murderer alone. These Jing family's children can't die in vain." With the burning of the messenger, the old man's body moved and disappeared from the original place, leaving only circles of air ripples, and he could not be seen soon. More than 10 miles away, Yi Tian, who was hiding in the sky, put away the small moving symbol in the collection, and his face showed the color of meditation. Sure enough, as I expected, these children of the Jing family really belong to the same family as that Jing Wuchou, and this family is so strong that there is a great monk in Yupujing. It seems that we have to be more careful in the future. However, through the previous situation, Yi Tian can see that the Jing family did not leave any trace marks on the family's children. Otherwise, he might not know how many small moving symbols to waste. After the old man disappeared, Yi Tian didn't leave immediately. Instead, he waited carefully for more than 10 minutes. After he didn't see the old man return, he hid his body and flew to the distance. After flying more than 200 li, Yi Tian released 4 Liangxingkong as before, and then dived into the sea. After falling to the bottom of the sea, he observed around, and then continued to use the earth to hide underground. Yi Tian takes out the magic weapon cave again and enters it. "Son, how's it going?" Seeing Yi Tian's figure, Yuanzi asked. Because the half-step monk Yuanying broke his 3 limbs, and his appearance was extremely ferocious and terrifying, Yi Tian did not choose to enter the time and space tower, but went to the cave where the dead man was. Those people are all the children of the Jing family in Lantsong Lingyu. The Jing family is an aristocratic family. Although the ranking is not very high, there are great monks in Yupujing. It's really terrible. The specific situation can only be known after soul searching. With these words, Yi Tian took out the friar from the spirit beast bag and put it on the ground. The palm of his hand had already knocked down the top of his opponent's head. For Yi Tianning to search the soul of a monk in Yuanying, Yuanzi and others were surprised, but they also felt that it was completely within the acceptable scope. For this first Dragon's Gate Saint's son, we can't treat him with common sense at all. There were too many miracles in this man. When the underworld was fighting, he went into the fog alone and killed countless powerful underworld practitioners, which was enough to prove his strength. Although these dead men did not know what means Yi Tian relied on. As for this mystery, it may still be guessed by people in the wild spiritual realm. This time, Yi Tian's soul-searching speed is relatively slow. Although the half-step monk in Yuanyingjing was physically disabled, his mind was not damaged. Now that he was in the hands of these people, he saw that there were hundreds of strong monks in the cave. He knew that he had absolutely provoked the wrong people. Since the other party dares to attack the Jing family, he is certainly not afraid of the Jing family. Moreover, if he is able to cultivate in the Dragon's Gate, he has a magic cave. I'm afraid that the background of his existence is more terrifying than that of the Jing family. I can't say that in the future, it may be a strong enemy of the Jing family. See Tian unexpectedly to want to search his soul, get their own memory, this person under the desire to crack, lock the mind will not let Yi Tian succeed. Knowing that he would die this time, he was determined to fight to death. What he thought in his heart was that no matter how powerful a monk in Longmen realm is, how can he have his own existence that has already reached the half-step divine realm? Is the divine idea powerful? However, after a moment, his face became extremely ugly. The strength of Yi Tian's mind is far beyond his imagination. It doesn't take long for the seemingly closed mind to be conquered by Yi Tian, and then Yi Tian's mind comes into his mind and turns to his memory. The monk collected all his thoughts in an attempt to drive Yi Tian out. This kind of mental battle is the most dangerous. If one can't do it well, his brain may be seriously damaged, or his memory may be damaged, or he may die. But when it came to this, the monk had nothing to fear, and he was doomed to die. However, the fact made him disappointed again. Even though he did not hesitate to die and suppressed Yi Tian's idea with his strong idea, he finally found that he was not as strong as Yi Tian's idea. Soon, his mind was suppressed by Yi Tian's mind, and the young Longmen monk had the spare power to search his memory with his spare mind. Whose son is this? How powerful is his mind? Is it the mysterious Xuanjia? When he thought about this, he could not help trembling all over, and he was even more regretful for his rash action. Although he had a mental collision with the monk, Yi Tian couldn't see any thrilling expression on the surface, but occasionally he frowned slightly, and then he stretched out. In this battle of mind, Yi Tian completely gained the upper hand, and smoothly read each other's memory. Thanks to these days, Yi Tian continuously took the refined pills to strengthen his mind, which made his mind constantly strengthen. If Yi Tianxiang had just entered the Lanzang spiritual realm, he would not have been so understated if he wanted to read this person's memory. More than an hour later, Yi Tian's slightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and then his palm force vomited. With a light click, the man's head fell apart, and the corpse fell to the ground. Son, this is from Shumi commandment. At this time, Yuanzi and other Yi Tian recover from the meditation and come over and say in a soft voice. Yi Tian nods slightly, takes over the Shumi commandment from Yuanzi, marks his mind and checks the items inside. There are not many things in it. They are all selected by Yuanzi and others from the 6 Shumi commandments. There are more than 40 jade boxes, more than 10 fist-sized Xianin stones, and several jade bottles. These things are completely consistent with the memory from the search. A dozen Xianin stones were snatched from other monks by these monks of the Jing family. Originally, when they stopped them, they also wanted to kill people and sell goods. On the vast sea, such a place is the most suitable. However, their luck was so bad that they succeeded many times before, but this time they were all folded here, which had nothing to do with whether they called Dao Yu. I'm afraid that at that time, the extremely inflated Jing family looked confident, even if they called him ancestor, they wouldn't be merciful. Seeing the objects inside, Yi Tian thought, took out the jade bottles, handed them back to Yuanzi and said, "You can distribute these pills by yourself. It's useless to me. In addition, you don't have to go out with me for the time being. Now you've done it once. For the sake of safety, you'd better hide your tracks and don't give each other any possibility of tracking." Yuanzi result jade bottle way, we all listen to the sun's command, if encounter critical moment, we pledge to protect the sun's safety. Yi Tian looked at these iron-blooded friars and nodded with a smile. If you need to, I will help you. With that, Yi Tian has gone out of the magic cave, finished the ending, and returned to the sea. We'll always check around the movement of the heartworm back. Yi Tian selected a direction, release fierce sword quickly escape. This is the direction I chose before, and this is also the direction to the coast. The half-step monk named Jing Wuwei was a descendant of the Jing family. The Jing family is a middle-class family, and its strength is also very strong. There are 163 children of no generation. Several of them have entered the Yuan dynasty. There are 9 monks in the Jing family. There are 13 cities belonging to the Jing family. This time, Jingjie sent out many children. First, he wanted to fish in troubled waters to see if he could find himself. The so-called reward came second, and his wealth was the most important. Another point is for Xianin stone, because the monks sold 1,000 Xianin stones and distributed them to the monks. The Jing family wanted to collect some Xianin stones by the way. If they could find Xiao Wang, they could also get the Xianin stones in his hands. At least they could search the soul to find out the source of the Xianin stones. Xiao Wang was the monk of Yuanyingjing who sold Xianin stone to himself at the fair. Since he sold out the last Xianin stone in a short time, he disappeared, never appeared again, and no one knew where he was going. And these monks in the golden elixir realm came after themselves, because their cultivation is only in the Longmen realm. In their opinion, such cultivation is enough in the golden elixir realm. However, the monks who changed the divine realm and Yuanying realm were looking for their own whereabouts for Xiao Wang's sake. Jing Wuwei is not very clear about the whereabouts of these monks, but Yi Tian knows all about their appearance, which is helpful for the next action. It's just a pity that Jing Wuwei doesn't know about the news of the Xuanjia, because the Xuanjia is so mysterious. While flying forward, Yi Tian was thinking about the Xians. The location of Xuanjia, or the entrance to the space where Xuanjia is located, must be an unexpected place, which no one would think of. Where is such a place? North of Fuyun Mountain, near the northwest junction with the Xuanjia branch. Yi Tian thought hard, but he didn't have a clue. All he could do was to go there. Just on the way, Yi Tian suddenly frowns and drives the fierce sword to another direction. Within the scope of the divine thoughts, 3 friars were flying to their side. Judging from its speed, at least it is the cultivation of Yuanyingjing. This situation bothers Yi Tian a lot. It's troublesome to deal with Yuanyingjing monks. He doesn't want to consume a few Yuanying fu. Knowing this, I'd rather go a few days late in the great wilderness and let Yenlai get some Yuan baby runes for me. But now it's too late to say anything, he can only hope that the other side is not for himself. There is a saying that things go against one's wishes. Now the situation is like this, Yi Tian doesn't want those people to come to him, but the other side is chasing him. In this way, Yi Tian knows that it's time to expose his whereabouts. Flying away, he suddenly disappeared from the sky. After counting the breath, 2 men and 1 woman, 3 monks dodged the light and stopped at the place where Yi Tian disappeared. It's him! One of the monks with a black beard frowned and said, and when he spoke, he was very careful. His breath burst out, as if he was guarding against Yi Tian's attack. Search separately. Another male friar's eyes twinkled. He looked into the air and said softly. 3 people said to do, almost at the same time, body flash, divided into 3 directions, escape more than 10 miles distance, at the same time slowly search to the middle. On the one hand, he moves forward, and on the other hand, he does not hesitate to expend his mana, sending out circles of mana fluctuations, trying to find Yi Tian invisible in this way. The 3 monks searched carefully, and their mana fluctuated widely, almost reaching the level of mutual connection. So there is a bird, if you want to get out of the detection of mana fluctuation, it will show its hiding. Unfortunately, when the 3 people search in different directions to the end, when they get together again, they still get nothing. It seems to have slipped away, said Friar Blackboard with regret. Elder Martial Brother, I don't think so. At this time, we'd better not interfere. It's said that the monk of Yuanyingjing has been lost in his hands recently. After such a long time, I'm afraid there are still some means. Although resources are valuable, it's better to be careful. The middle-aged nun, who had never spoken, advised. Younger martial sister Yuan, you are so naive. Do you really think that monk Yuan Yingjing was damaged in the hands of this little monk Longman? That's the news released by others to confuse people. Just imagine, in the Lansong spiritual realm, is there a precedent for the monks in Longmen realm to kill the monks in Yuanying realm? No, never. According to my guess, the monk of Yuanying died at the hands of others, but no one saw him at that time, so he just blamed the boy of Longmen. In my opinion, he can escape now only because he has the ability to be invisible," said Friar Blackbeard with a sneer. "But even if the monk in Longmen didn't have the ability to kill the monk in Yuanying, who can guarantee that he didn't have a deep background? If it enlivens the forces behind them, we Tianjianzong can't afford it." The nun said hesitantly. "Sister Yuan, you are timid." "Elder martial brother, I'm not a reckless person. I've made it clear through my friends of the Xian family. Although this monk can be invisible, he is not a member of the Xian family. Moreover, the arrest of him by the Xian family is enough to explain the problem. The most important thing is that Xianyu, the leader of the side branch of the Xian family, has sent people to the major families to make sure that this person is not a member of any family. From now on, no one has made any sound, and no one has come forward to protect him, which can also prove this. The so-called wealth insurance in the pursuit, how can there be no risk of doing things? If you want to talk about opportunity, it's a rare opportunity in 100 years. Friar Blackbeard explained with some irritation. Third elder martial brother, why don't you advise the eldest elder martial brother? I always think things are not so simple. After listening to the elder martial brother's words, the nun still frowned and looked at another male nun with a worried look. But the monk shook his head and said, Sister Yuan, I think elder martial brother is right. The three friars thought that Yi Tian had escaped far away, and they had no scruples in speaking. But unexpectedly, about a mile away, in the rough sea, Yi Tianzhang stood stealthily and heard their conversation word for word. It turned out to be a monk of Tianjianzong. Yi Tian heard the name of the sect not once or twice. Du Mingyue, Xian's mother, once mentioned that she was a disciple of Tianjian sect. Later, because of Xianfeng, she was forced to settle down and expelled Du Mingyue from the sect. Later, the Zhang family of Tianlong City went to Tianjianzong to look for Du Mingyue's original jade slips. Tianjianzong, knowing that the Zhang family was looking for Du Mingyue, still sold the original jade slips to the Zhang family for the sake of Immortals. For such a sect, what they did, Yi Tian hated deeply. Especially when they know that they don't have any background, they chase themselves everywhere for the so-called resources, and they have to kill themselves, which makes the cold light in Yi Tian's eyes keep flashing. But at this time, the three monks of Yuanying get together, and Yi Tian doesn't have a suitable meeting. A moment later, the three talked about it again. Finally, the younger martial sister Yuan couldn't ring the two elder martial brothers, so she had to follow Yi Tian. But the three men were separated from each other and pursued in the same direction. If it's okay to say that there is no trace of Yi Tian at ordinary times, and the three separate people don't know where they will finally disperse, but now Yi Tian has appeared, and they have adopted this strategy in order to expand the scope. In the middle of Yuan dynasty, Yi Tian is looking at the direction of the elder martial brothers' departure in the sea. His eyes flow and he leaves the same place. The three people left in three different directions. After flying more than 10 miles, they began to slow down and explore all the way to the distance, gradually moving away from each other. Yi Tian quietly followed the elder martial brother, watching him keep sending out mana waves, with a sneer on his lips. Spend all your mana. Yi Tianlei is happy that his opponent's mana costs more. If he starts later, he can play as soon as possible. But the elder martial brother with black beard didn't feel Yi Tian several miles behind him. From time to time, he stopped and looked around. From time to time, he let out his mind to investigate, and then he continued to search far away. After finding out nearly 100 li distance, he was finally a little discouraged. He began to be a little careless when he was investigating. Maybe he thought that if Yi Tianru wanted to leave, he had already left here, or he didn't go in this direction at all. No matter what he thought, after a moment, he stopped completely. Just when he wanted to turn around and look in the direction of the two younger martial brothers and younger martial sisters, he suddenly saw a figure flickering on the sea not far away. Sometimes he was invisible, sometimes he appeared and fled far away. Friar Blackbeard was ecstatic in his heart immediately. When the figure appeared for a short time, he saw clearly that it was the friar in Longmen territory he was going to pursue. But this kind of body shape twinkles the situation just to explain, the opposite party already mana is about to exhaust, cannot continue to cast the stealth skill. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Even in order to kill Tian and monopolize all of his wealth, he does not even inform the other two younger martial brothers and younger martial sisters, so he goes after Tian's position in a flash. This elder, you and I have no injustice or hatred. It seems that Tian's mana is about to run out, and he can't be invisible for a moment. Suddenly, he turns around and says that he wants to beg for mercy. Well, what if there is no injustice or hatred? You're dead today. With a cold hum, the Friar Blackbeard interrupts the words behind Tian. He turns into a light and flies straight to Tian. Then he condenses and falls in front of him. He wants to catch him. At this time, Tian's eyes suddenly came cold. Countless shadows flew out of him and rushed to the friar. At the moment when a large number of shadows flew out, Tian's figure suddenly retreated, far away from the attack range of Friar Blackbeard. Ah! Spirit bug! Seeing the black shadow coming quickly and incomparably, the monk's face changed and his figure suddenly retreated without thinking, trying to get rid of these spirit insects. But unexpectedly, as soon as he moved, an 8-column-shaped shield suddenly appeared out of thin air. Friar Blackbeard suddenly hit the shield, and his body was rebounded by the strong rebound force. Until now, he found that he had been trapped in a strong field. What's more terrible is that those black spirit insects are also trapped in it and are coming towards themselves. There are so many spirit insects, I'm afraid there are not more than 10,000. Friar Blackbeard already knew from the feeling that he just hit the shield that he couldn't break through the shield in a short time, and he had to do his best to deal with these spirit insects. At this time, he was flustered but not confused. He gathered all his mana and burst out powerful mana, impacting the spirit insects coming from all directions. The spirit insects are attacked and bounced away by mana one after another. However, the impact of this degree doesn't do much damage to them. It's like flying into a wall. It's just a little dizzy. As a fourth-order spirit insect, and after Tian fed elixir, the changed clematis was not as fragile as the monk Blackbeard imagined. The wire ant, which had been thrown away, flapped back and continued to pounce on the friar from all directions. After the first round of impact, the friar had mastered the impact strength of these iron line ants, so he would not exert all his strength to resist them. In this way, in the attack of many iron line ants, a lot of mana will be consumed soon, and the final result can be imagined. Although only 60% of the mana defense was sent out, as a monk in the middle of Yuanying realm, the defense of this strength was also very terrible. The wire ants flew into the thick liquid, and then met an insurmountable wall, which was blocked by the mana released by the monk. Brother Blackbeard saw that this move worked, so he had time to take out 2 heralds, and his mana stimulated him to go out. Unfortunately, with the burning of the herald, the monk's face changed greatly when he saw that the burning herald went out suddenly. This shows that the message has not been successfully transmitted due to some barrier. The friar glanced at the 8-column-shaped shield around him, and his heart was cold. The shield appeared out of thin air without any sign. I don't know what field it was. It was so hard to defend. No wonder a friar of Yuanying fell down. He thought he died of this attack. Thinking about this, he added a lot of fear in his heart. He was afraid that he would be attacked and killed by these spirit insects when his mana was exhausted. He tried to recover some mana as long as he could stop the attack of Lingchong. I hope that during this period of time, the 2 younger martial brothers and younger martial sisters can feel their own danger and come back to help each other. As long as the monk of Longmen realm outside the shield is killed, these spirit insects in the field will be solved naturally. When he tried to receive 50% of his mana and his defense was weak, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest, and then there was a sharp pain behind his neck. Then, the chest and neck pain, then issued a burst of numbness. No, it's a poisonous insect. Friar Blackbeard let out an exclamation subconsciously, and then there was a sharp pain in his shoulder and abdomen at the same time. With the sharp pain, it is still a sense of numbness. Knowing that he had been attacked by poisonous insects, the monk took out a jade bottle in a hurry, poured out a pill and quickly sent it to the entrance. It's a pity that there seems to be something wrong with the pill. Since the feeling of numbness and soreness spread in the injured area, it gradually spread to half of the body. At this time, this person's mana has been unable to be mobilized. Taking advantage of this opportunity, those wire ants suddenly feel that the resistance is relaxed, and their bodies have been able to fly into the mana defense. Many spirit insects broke through the defense, jumped on the monk and began to eat. A sad cry came from the friar's mouth. As the friar collided wildly in the 8-column field shield, he kept beating the wire ants on his body. But it didn't work. Not only did the shield not break through, but even a part of the body was swept away, and then quickly rushed up again. "Let me out. I'll give you whatever you want." The friar had a chance to escape. He was mercilessly blocked by the field shield again. Countless wire ants jumped on him and felt the pain of half-body numbness and 10,000 swords penetrating the heart. He looked at Tian standing outside the shield and screamed in despair. This time, he felt that death was so close to him and within his reach. If this situation could not be changed, he had no doubt that he would fall here. Tian's eyes flashed, his lips flashed with a cold radiance, and his voice returned without any emotion. "I just want your life, give it or not." "You?" "Ah." Friar Blackbeard wanted to say something more, but suddenly he let out a scream. A wire ant had bitten through his strong body and got into the viscera. Third younger martial brother. "Kill him. Save me." After a scream, Friar Blackbeard suddenly looked at the distance and cried out. At the same time, he gathered the remaining mana of his whole body and burst into a roaring momentum. The iron line ant on his body collapsed. His palm slapped hard on a small bleeding hole on his body, and a strong suction was sent out. The iron line ant inside was slowly sucked away from the viscera. While doing this action, eyes at the same time with extreme desire, looking at the more and more close figure, as if to seize the last straw in general. The monk who came here is another male monk among the three of his peers. He accidentally let go of his mind to look for Tian. Suddenly, he saw the scene that the eldest martial brother was surrounded and killed. He sent a message to the younger martial sister Yuan, and then came in a hurry. "Boy! You're dead." The monk's speed was very fast, and he was close to him after counting his breath. His momentum burst out to shoot at Tian. Seeing this scene, the friar Blackbeard in the field shield gave a distorted roar and a long breath at the same time. Although he was seriously injured, some parts of his body had been gnawed beyond recognition. It really showed his bones, but he protected his throat with his hands to save his life. Although the injury was extremely serious, his younger martial brother could kill Tian, escape from the shield, and get rid of the insect poison. He still had a chance to save his life. For the first time, he felt that his younger martial brother was so amiable and lovely. Ah! But all of a sudden, he was full of hope. As he was about to approach the young monk, he suddenly changed his mind. A round shield appeared out of thin air and trapped the third younger martial brother in it. The third younger martial brother attacked the shield crazily, but just like himself, he had nothing to do with the tough transparent shield. Put me. Friar Blackbeard was as if he was in the ice cellar for a moment, and his mana was released. After a few words, the black wire ant had jumped on him again and began to eat crazily. There are also some clematis from the broken wound into the viscera. This person suffered from viscera gnawing pain, like crazy again and again hit the shield, until finally the whole body numb, no strength, let the clematis ruthlessly gnawing. Even the magic power of flying in the sky was lost, and the whole body fell to the bottom of the field shield. Blood and flesh splashed in the ruthless gnawing of the iron line ant, and the body gradually shrunk in the process of nibbling until finally, he suddenly saw someone flying in again, and a glimmer of hope was rekindled in his eyes. Yuan, who had been practicing for many years, came out of his body to break through the siege of clematis, looking forward to the nuns coming from afar and saving herself. However, the clematis frantically pounced on Yuan, who was scarred. After all, they formed a red and black ball. No matter how Yuan broke through, he was always surrounded by clematis. Withdraw. At this time, Tian glances at another light that flies quickly. With a low drink, the 8-pillar-shaped shield that trapped the Friar Blackbeard suddenly disappears out of thin air. However, Tian turns to the flying nun. This person is exactly the younger martial sister Yuan who was summoned by the third elder martial brother. Seeing that the elder martial brother had fallen, the third elder martial brother was trapped in the field shield, but the low-level Longmen monk looked at herself calmly. Her face suddenly changed and she stopped. For a moment, she did not dare to approach. Younger martial sister Yuan, kill this man. The field will be broken. The third elder martial brother in the field of Suatian formation saw that the younger martial sister stopped halfway, and he could not help but feel anxious to urge him. The scene of the elder martial brother being bitten by the spirit insect was witnessed by him throughout the whole process. The bloody and horrible picture was creepy and extremely frightening. He can't imagine what will happen if these spirit insects rush into the field shield and use them against himself. He did not dare to imagine, but also dare not face, it is definitely not a good result. At this time, the friar really regretted that he meddled in his own business and rashly came to rescue his elder martial brother. As a result, he was also in prison. Younger martial sister. Kill him. Seeing that younger martial sister Yuan was suspiciously suspended in the air in the distance, she didn't follow her own command to come to the rescue. In her heart, she couldn't help urging. This ordinary-looking middle-aged nun's eyes slowly swept over Tian and the black line ants around him. Her eyes gradually changed from hesitation to determination. At a certain moment, she turned ruthlessly and was ready to fly away. But she just flew out not far, but heard a buzz, an 8-column shield appeared out of thin air, trapped herself in it. This shield is as like as 2 peas for the big brother. Younger martial sister. The third elder martial brother, trapped in the field of Suatam array, uttered a cry of despair. His heart suddenly sank and he had a bad feeling. He is not worried about the safety of younger martial sister Yuan, but she is trapped and no one can save her. Looking at the black wire ant circling outside, the man took out a hammer-shaped top magic weapon and began to smash the field shield crazily. But what a treasure is the sky-locked array of flags! To stimulate the greatest potential can trap the great monk in heaven. Even though the Kunlun cultivation in the stealth excitation field is limited, it is more than enough to trap a monk in the spiritual realm, let alone a monk in the middle of the Yuan dynasty. After hundreds of smashes, the field has no sign of being broken, and this person's mana has been consumed. All of a sudden, this man seems to think of something. He stops attacking and begins to sit in the middle of the field, recuperate his breath and prepare to recover his mana. Since we can't break the field, we'll wait for a miracle. Maybe there will be a fellow passerby to kill the young monk. See this person like this, Tian looks a cold to fly to the edge of the shield, eyes burning to look at the person sitting on his knees. Tens of thousands of clematis, together with 2 invisible fourth-order snakes, were close at his side. The friar raised his eyes to see Tian. His face had recovered a little, and he still did his own work to regulate his breath. There was no other extreme behavior. Tian knows that this man doesn't want to offend himself, but at this time he shows a pitiful look, and Tian will never let this man go. At a certain moment, the field shield suddenly disappeared, the monk's body suddenly flashed, and he wanted to take the road, but his action was a little slow. Many clematis around Tian had suddenly rushed to the monk. At this time, the field shield was opened again, and the clematis and the monk were trapped in the field at the same time. All this happened only in a very short moment. The disappearance and reopening of the shield were perfectly matched by the wire ant. On the surface, Tian always looks cold, and doesn't seem to do anything, but all these things are quietly arranged under his guidance. For the first time, Tian used all the wire ants to deal with the friars in Yuanyingjing. Just relying on the clematis itself, it is impossible to kill the friars of Yuanyingjing. The speed and mana of Yuanyingjing are not comparable to those of Taixiani, even if the number is more. However, with the help of the array flag, there are many chances of winning. In the limited space, it is absolutely impossible for the friars of Yuanyingjing to get rid of the Tian ant completely. Once the mana is consumed too much, the Iron Line ant is definitely the death god of the monk who reached the Yuan infant realm. Among them, the sneak attack of the 4th level Shadowless Snake is undoubtedly a magic stroke. In the field shield of the Lock Sky Array, the scene on stage seems to have become a copy of the previous 8-pole array field shield. More than 10,000 4th Order Clematis surrounded the monk and attacked him crazily. The monk burst out and blocked the Clematis out. In such a cycle, the Clematis was bounced away, but it didn't matter. The monk was constantly consuming his mana. At a certain moment, the trapped 3rd Elder Martial Brother in the field suddenly pinches his fingers, and a burning flame appears out of thin air and burns to the Tian ant colony. However, it's unexpected that the body of these ants has become extremely strong after a sudden change, and the ordinary Taoist fire can't help them at all. All of a sudden, these ants saw the flame and just spread out, instinctively protecting themselves. But then he found that the fire he sent out was not as strong as he thought, so he fluttered his wings and rushed to the fire again. Seeing that the Taoist flame passed like nothing, he continued to attack the monk. Seeing this, the monk felt a tremor in his heart, and suddenly a flying sword appeared in his hand. He took up the swords and twisted them to the flying ant colony. But at the moment when the sword light appeared, the ant colony on the front suddenly scattered around, while those on the back took advantage of the emptiness and attached to the monk when his defense was weak. And the 2 4-step Shadowless Snakes also found a chance, suddenly shot, and bit each other on the person's legs. In this case, this man failed earlier than his elder martial brother, and fell into the siege of Tian ants. Outside the field, Tian stares at the wire ants affected by the swordlight, with a total number of more than 100. After being swept by the swordlight, he hits the field shield and falls to the ground. But these ants didn't die. Instead, they crawled slowly on the ground and couldn't fly for a while. Except for a few of them who are facing the edge of the sword and are slightly damaged, the rest are only affected by the shock of the sword's mana. The temporary movement difficulty caused by it is not a big problem. It only takes a few days to recover. Seeing this scene, Tian was completely relieved. Although there are a large number of Clematis, the total number is limited. If you lose one, you will lose one. Moreover, this kind of Clematis reproduces very slowly. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to survive in the Ring of Spirit Beast for many years to reach such a number. It seems that we can refine some special pills and let them breed as soon as possible. Just when thinking about this, Tian is aware of it, turns around and looks into the distance. There was a light flying towards here, but it was strange that the light was very fast at the beginning, which was not the speed that a monk in the Golden Elixir realm could achieve. However, when he got closer to here, his speed slowed down, and he showed indecision and approached here very slowly. Tian glances at the field shield of the Lock Sky Array and the field shield of the Octopole Array. The 3rd Elder Martial Brother is struggling with the Iron Line Ant, but he has lost his guard. The Iron Line Ant is eating this man, but he still has more power to deal with it. If you remove the shield at this time, this person is likely to urge the remaining mana to escape from the heaven. In the field of the 8-pole array, the frightened nun did not make any attack. She just looked at the monk from a distance, and her eyes burst out a strong desire for survival. Tian is observing, and the monk who comes suddenly is also observing. It was a middle-aged friar with pale complexion. He was dressed in linen clothes, white robes and big sleeves. His eyes were shining. Looking at Tian and 2 field shields, he seemed to be hesitant. But 2 or 3 interest time, this person seems to have made up his mind. Looking at Tian's eyes began to be full of extreme greed color, and then body shape flashed to Tianfei. Tian looks cold. He pinches the complicated formula with both hands, and the sword light flies out of his elixir field and hides in the air. The monk seemed to be stunned, but then a flying sword suddenly flew out, turned into a sword light, and cut to Tianyao from a long distance. Just haven't wait for the sword light to cut, Tian's figure has disappeared from the original place. The man's body stopped suddenly, then retreated abruptly, retreated from a distance of more than 10 feet, and then burst into a powerful momentum with a bang all over his body. He was on guard carefully. The flying sword he released circled in the air for a week and flew back to his hands. Dao Yu, help me to kill this man. He's very rich. All the things I got belong to my Taoist friends, and I'll give you my only 200,000 immortals. If my Taoist friends have other interests, I'll let them have whatever they want, even though I'm Pu Lu. At this time, in the field shield of the 8-pole array, the nun seems to have begun to retreat. Now she is very openly encouraging. This person may be the only chance to escape the field. How can she let it go? In the early Yuan dynasty, the friar glanced at the woman through the transparent shield and then moved away. Obviously, he didn't seem to be interested in the nun. But his eyes stay at the place where Tian disappeared before, and his eyes flicker. At a certain moment, it seems that he has made a decision. With a gesture, he sent out a powerful mana wave, trying to find Tian's invisible position. However, before he found Tian, he suddenly felt that when the mana wave spread to the outside of the trapped nun's shield, there were two obvious abnormalities. The original arc-shaped magic shield is blocked by something and concave inward. It is clear that there are invisible people. The nun was also aware of this situation. At this time, he realized that the young monk was not alone, and that he had a companion to hide and set up the field. Such a situation let her mind a little calm, otherwise the field arranged by Tian is unpredictable, which makes people feel inexplicable fear. Now, all the doubts are solved. Looking at the later friars, they were too careful, and when they found out that there were other invisible people, they had the idea to leave here. In a hurry, the nun said again, "You don't have to be so careful. These invisible people are not the people of the Xian family, but the friars of Longmen realm are the people the Xian family wanted. Although these invisible people have not exposed their own breath, they can only rely on the field to trap me. I don't think the realm is high. It's a big pass to reach the golden elixir realm. You just need to push back one of them, and you can break the field. Then I will get out of the field and thank you with fairy jade. Moreover, Dao Yu and I will advance and retreat together. If we can kill that young man, all the resources we get will go to Dao Yu." No matter how she got out of trouble, the nun made a lot of promises. When the monk heard the words, his eyes twinkled, then he didn't say a word. However, he suddenly burst out a momentum and cut off the location of an invisible man. Seeing that this man finally had some action, the nun trapped in the field was very happy. She rushed to the shield and was ready to get away in time once the shield was broken. But I didn't expect that the friar's sword in the early period of Yuanyingjing didn't reach the attack position, but suddenly, there was a flash of light in front of him, and several dazzling white lights appeared out of thin air, which suddenly stopped the flying sword and knocked it back. Almost at the same time, the friar's whole body was full of light. Many crisscross lights were like the waves of the sea. The back wave suppressed the front wave, and quickly pushed towards the middle wave by wave. Tian sword array? Tian sword array? Almost at the same time, the monk and the nun in the field exclaimed at the same time. Are you from the Jing family? No, only Jing Wuchou can control the Tian sword array. Was Jing Wuchou killed by you? The monk who was trapped in the Tian sword array suddenly changed his face and exclaimed. Although he could not see where Tian was, he knew that Tian must have set up the Tian sword array nearby. Yes, I did. Originally you could not die, but you have to run this muddy water, so today you have to die. Somewhere in the sky, Tian suddenly shows his figure, and his voice says coldly as he continuously pinches his hand formula. At that moment, his mind moved. 16 swords turned into cold light, which speeded up the speed again and pushed forward the crisscross sword light. As if the monk was trapped in a cage made of sword light, the space around him was rapidly compressed and getting smaller and smaller. In the early Yuan dynasty, the friar's face turned pale. He held the flying sword in his hand, collected all his mana, and suddenly cut the sword light with all his strength. The powerful sword light cuts above the sword light of Xiaomishan sword array. The sword light of the sword array suddenly trembles. When it is about to collapse, it suddenly flickers again and returns to the previous level. That's close. Outside the field, Tian, who manipulated the Xiaomishan sword array, let out a low cry. Just that sword, he almost broke the Xiaomishan sword array. Thanks to my quick reaction, my mana is instantly stimulated, and I can supplement the power through the connection between other swords and runes. If you were someone else, you would not be able to achieve this level. Although Xiaoxumi's sword array is powerful, there is too much difference in the realm. It seems too far-fetched to cross a whole big realm and want to kill this monk. However, Tian is not discouraged. The formula changes quickly. The mana is played with the formula. The light in the Xiaoxumi sword array flickers and shuttles incessantly, which makes people dazzled. The friar couldn't get to the exact position of the sword. Tian didn't want to kill the monk in the early Yuan dynasty by using the Xiaomission sword array, but he just learned how to arrange the Xiaomission sword array. If he can't do it, he can kill him by wasting a Yuan Yingfu. However, such a monk in the early Yuan dynasty is just the most suitable person to practice. He can make a perfect combination of the theory and practice of Xiaomission sword formation. At this time, the battle between Ling Chong and the third elder martial brother is coming to an end. There was no doubt that the monk's Yuanying was out of the body, and still could not escape the encirclement of 10,000 clematis. He turned into a ball to encircle Yuanying with a small sword. There is no need to worry about this regiment. Tian goes all out to control the Xiaomission sword array, and has a fierce game with the monks trapped in the array. The sword array is like a square cage, and it is a cage with great lethality. What makes up the cage is not any cage bars, but the sword light, which looks terrible. The space between the swords is slowly compressed. Tian controls 16 small swords to advance harmoniously and cooperate with each other. The runes between the swords are fully activated and echo with each other, transmitting and supplementing power. If any of the small swords in the array appear for a moment, the rune pattern between them will not be able to produce linkage echo because of the dislocation of the small swords, and the array will be broken. Although the 16 swords are still under the control of the array setters, they can only be used in individual combat, and cannot form the powerful linkage lethality of the Xiaomission sword array. To arrange the sword array is to form the sword-like cage, and then the cage will not be scattered. With all kinds of changes, the terrible lethality of the sword-like cage will be released. Looking at the powerful Mitan sword array, the monk's face in the early Yuan dynasty was constantly changing, and he made a series of terrorist attacks as fast as lightning, trying to break it up before the sword-like cage was surrounded. If you can't do this, if you let the sword-like cage close, then the end of waiting for him will be cut countless pieces of meat. There is absolutely no possibility of survival. Boom! Boom! The deafening sound came out, and the flying sword slashed the sword-like cage wantonly. The attack power of a monk in Yuanying, even if he was just a monk in the early stage of Yuanying, was extremely terrible. Such a big momentum, but the strong power cut to the sword light. Just let the sword-like cage have some subtle changes, but there is no sign of collapse. The flashing light of the sword was actually the light of the sword array emitted by the small sword in the rapid shuttle. Although the monk was in the same position every time he cut. However, Tian manipulated the small swords accurately with his mind. Every breath, these swords changed many positions. In fact, the same position that the friar chopped was on different swords. The swords and swords were connected, and the powers were interlinked. The friar's mind was endless, and his magic power was endless. The cage of sword light would be closed to the middle, and he would drink blood straight back. Gradually, with the continuous contraction of the sword-like cage, the space inside was from the first 7 or 8 feet, gradually 5 or 6 feet, and then 3 or 4 feet at this time. The space formed by the sword-like cage has been continuously compressed, reduced to about 1 zhang. Ah! The monk was so frightened that he screamed and became more crazy. The flying sword in his hand had been chopping and chopping disorderly, and he had made the last desperate struggle. Tian's eyes are always indifferent. At one moment, he takes out a drop of nature liquid and swallows it. In an instant, the consumed mana bursts out again and returns to the peak state. It has to be said that this little Tian sword array is really too much mana consuming. If there is no liquid of nature to quickly recover mana, I'm afraid it will be broken and disintegrated automatically without being surrounded by the sword-like cage. The amount of mana consumed in arranging the Xiaomission sword array is also related to the attack strength of the monks trapped in the sword array. The greater the attack strength, the fiercer and crazier it is, the greater the mana needed to maintain the operation of the sword array. On the contrary, if the opponent lets the sword-like cage close in the sword array, the amount of mana consumed will be far less than the current amount. But this situation will never exist, unless the other party is already a dead person. Under Tian's precise control, the sword-like cage still continues to compress towards the middle. Although the speed is not so fast, it is indomitable. Besides the sword array, the third elder martial brother has been engulfed by more than 10,000 iron line ants, and Shumi Jia has been removed from Kunlun Xiu, who has locked the sky array flag. 36 Kunlun Xius stood in the same place, quietly watching Yi Tian manipulating the sword-like cage. Once a monk in Yuanying realm, his realm fell to the golden elixir realm because of the erosion of the breath of destruction. Every one of these Kunlun monks knows what terrible strength they will have when they reach Yuanying realm. Yi Tian, the founder who has created all kinds of miracles repeatedly, is relying on his own cultivation of Longmen realm to fight with Aozhan, a monk of Yuanying realm. Although it seems that a powerful sword array is used, this kind of sword array is different from other Yuanying runes. It is also a part of strength. No one can drive such a terrible sword array. At least these Kunlun practitioners asked themselves that if they were replaced, they might be able to control one of the 36 banners of the sky array, but if they were allowed to set up such a powerful sword array, they would not be able to. In the other field of the 8-pole array, the nun, seeing the situation in the sword array, was already pale and pale. Finally, the last straw also lost its meaning. No one will appear here to save themselves. No one could have imagined that this young man, who was only a monk in Longmen realm, had such a terrible means. There are not only 2 sets of powerful field array flags, but also a lot of terrible spirit insects. They even killed Jing Wuchou. In such a short time, they have used the sky-wide sword array to the level of perfection. At this time, she regretted that she came to Shanghai, regretted that she didn't turn around immediately at the last moment, but left time for the other party to arrange the field. But it's all too late. She has seen the fate of the 2 elder martial brothers. Maybe the next step they will follow will be their own. At this time, the nun had lost her last fantasy that she could escape, because she was only a pre-Yuanying in cultivation. Not to mention Yi Tian's Mitian sword array, if he just put some spirit insects into the field, the final result will be miserable. Finally, under the monk's crazy attack, the Xia mission sword array finally closed. Ah! The front, back, left, right, upper and lower sword lights were closed together. The last space in the square sword light cage was also oppressed by the sword light. The friar in it seems to be as fragile as paper under the powerful crushing of 6 sides of sword light. With the shrill cry, the friar turns into a pile of broken meat and falls down from the gap of sword light mixed with blood. Yi Tian takes a long breath, removes 32 swords, and then moves his finger. The man's Zumaji moves back from the broken meat and holds it in his hand. Holding Shumi ring in hand, Yi Tian looks at the Tianjian nun trapped in the field. Although he was a great friar of Yupu realm in his previous life, the friar of Huashan realm he killed was also unknown, but the friar of Yuanying realm he killed this time has a very different significance. Although the Xia mission sword array is used, it is different from the grimace mask and Yuanying talisman. It depends on one's own strength rather than external strength. This is the first Yuanying monk he personally killed. Although the Xiaoxumi sword array has been deduced countless times before, when the sword array is really arranged in front of our eyes, we can have a more thorough understanding of the sword array only after we have witnessed the terrible power of the sword array. I really know how to be flexible and how to exert the greatest power of Xia mission sword array. It can be said that this friar is the grindstone for him to try to arrange the Xia mission sword array, which is of great significance for him to master the array thoroughly. Through this battle, Yi Tian has a clear understanding of the greatest strength he can show now. So, what should we do with this nun, who was also in the early Yuan dynasty? Yi Tian's eyes fell on the girl and began to ponder. Dao Yu, please spare my life. From now on, I'm willing to accept any of your prohibitions. I'll be a slave and a maid, and I'll drive you. If Dao Yu are interested in my concubine, you can take whatever you want. Seeing that Yi Tian's eyes stay on her body, the girl seems to see a ray of light, and pleads without shame. Yi Tian naturally heard similar words. This woman also said it to the previous monk once, and she could not help but sneer back and said, "Your life is here for the time being. It's up to another person to decide whether to live or die." Another one? Listening to Yi Tian's words, the nun looked around suspiciously, only to find that there was no one in the area covered by the divine thoughts. Then she looked around again, looking for the location of those invisible people, thinking that what Yi Tian said was one of these people. However, immediately the nun knew that she was wrong. Where she could see, Tian had taken out a magic weapon cave, quickly enlarged it in the air, and then came out of it. At first sight of this person's face, the nun's face was startled, and then she said with great enthusiasm, "Mingyue, why are you here?" "I am your master." Du Mingyue is suddenly called out by Tian. She doesn't know where she is. After walking out of the magic weapon cave, she suddenly finds that she is in the rough sea. Tian stands beside the cave. There is a big transparent shield in front of her, and a woman inside is shouting to herself. "Master?" When Du Mingyue saw this person, she couldn't help changing her face. When she heard the self-proclaimed word Shifu, she felt that this kind of address had become very far away for her, as if it had happened in a previous life. "Mingyue, I'm your master. Why don't you know me? One day as a teacher and one life as a mother, you can't be so heartless. Do you have to save your master's life this time? Please?" Mingyue. Seeing the numb expression on Du Mingyue's face, the nun's heart suddenly sank, and a lot of dusty past events poured into her heart. However, no matter what, Du Mingyue was the last straw to save her life. No matter what relationship she had with the young friar, the young man had just said that he would leave his fate to another person. This man is obviously his former disciple. Du Mingyue. Hearing the nun's words, Du Mingyue still has no expression on her face. Many past things that she doesn't want to think of are irresistibly floating in her mind, including humiliation, hatred, agony, and hopelessness. She didn't say hello to the nun, and she didn't have any eye contact. Instead, she looked at Tian beside her. Tian has already understood what's going on. It seems that Du Mingyue was expelled from Tianjin sect that year. She must have something to do with the nun in front of her. Although they may really be apprentices, they are strangers now, even worse than passers-by. This man is from Tianjin zone. He, another elder martial brother and a third elder martial brother are going to kill me. Now I am trapped in the field. Du Daoyu, what should you do with this person? It also gives you a chance to end your enmity with Tianjin zone. Tian understands the meaning of the inquiry in Du Mingyue's eyes, so he says, "Thank you for thinking so carefully, haha." Speaking of this, Du Mingyue laughed coldly. "When it comes to enmity, it's more than enmity between me and Tianjin zone. It's almost like hatred. This man used to be my master." Just talking about this, the nun in the field shield interrupted her quickly. "Mingyue, there was no master before, isn't she also your master? There must be a feeling of master and apprentice, right? The sect stresses respecting teachers and respecting the way. Shifu is wrong, but you should give Shifu a chance to make up for it, right? What's more, it has happened. We should think about how to recover it instead of revenge. Master has 200,000 Xianyu here, which can be used as compensation for you." "Shut up, Yuan Qinghua." Originally, Du Mingyue looked cold, but she was still in a normal state. When she heard the nun's words, she suddenly cried out hysterically. She became very excited. She quickly walked to the edge of the shield and asked, "Yuan Qinghua, what else do you talk about the friendship between teachers and disciples? You and I have been completely cut off since you expelled me from Tianjin sect. Now you come to beg me, don't you forget how I knelt down to beg you? What's wrong with me, Du Mingyue? In a word, you lick people like dogs, and you have to drive me out of the family. But my face has been destroyed, and I look like a ghost. Why didn't you say that you should pay attention to half of the master's kindness and seek justice for me? Even if you give me some comfort, not only did you have nothing, but you drove me to a desperate situation and nearly killed me. But your appearance has recovered, and anyway, you and I have the affection of apprentices, right?" After hearing Du Mingyue say this, Yuan Qinghua remembered that Du Mingyue had been disfigured, but the skin of Du Mingyue was bright and clean, tender and lovely, and there was no sign of being disfigured. Du Mingyue still said excitedly in her voice, "What does it matter to you whether my appearance recovers or not? Still talking about the affection of master and apprentice, do you have any sense of shame? When you took me as an apprentice, you just wanted to please your elder martial brother through me and get enough resources from him. What do you take me for? In order to avoid your entanglement, I took advantage of the excuse of traveling to avoid the school. Until after disfigurement, I think you should all break this mind, and then dare to return to the sect. Who knows, as a result, you are driven out and become a ghost. As soon as Yuan Xinghua's face changed, she immediately explained, Mingyue, master was also for your own good. You have a weak foundation and limited resources. If you can climb up to your master uncle, many things in your cultivation will be solved easily. And as a woman, isn't it good to find a Taoist partner with a background? What's more, the matter of settling down is not decided by disciples like master. It's decided by our patriarch himself to expel you from the sect according to the meaning of settling down. Don't blame master. Just now, master said, I'll give you 200,000 fairy jade. Put away your smelly fairy jade. Do you think resources are everything in Xianyu can solve all problems? Today, I won't go down the drain, but I won't plead for you. The relationship between you and me is broken. I have nothing to do with Tianjian's own. Whether you live or die depends on your nature. If you really end up in a bad situation, I can see that it's just natural that you should be punished badly. Ha ha. Yuan Xinghua, I didn't expect you to have today, and you would be so desperate to ask for help. At this point, Du Mingyue looked at Yi Tian again. How to deal with it, Taoist friends, please help yourself, don't care about me. With these words, Du Mingyue's tone was obviously relaxed, and her face gradually returned to normal. All kinds of things in the past really seemed to be erased from her heart, and the obsession and hatred of her early years should be erased together. Du Mingyue's words, Yi Tian already know her attitude. No matter how Yuan Xinghua calls Du Mingyue in the field shield, Du Mingyue no longer ignores her. Yi Tian also stepped forward, came to the outside of the shield, and said to Yuan Xinghua inside, do you end it by yourself? Or suffer from the pain of 10,000 swords penetrating the heart? Or the gnawing pain of 10,000 insects? Is there really no other way? Yuan Xinghua's face turned pale and her voice trembled. She no longer had any illusions about Du Mingyue's attitude. Yi Tian tacitly shakes his head, and there is no pity on his face. Even if Du Mingyue pleads for this woman, Yi Tian will not let her go like this. At least she should be imprisoned until she leaves Lansan Lingyu, otherwise, she knows too many things. Since Du Mingyue and this person have so many grudges, Yi Tian will use the simplest means to kill this person directly. Let me think about it. Hearing what Yi Tian said, Yuan Xinghua's body softened and she sat down on the ground with a pale face. Do you want to delay? Do you think the spirit insects can't get into your field? Yi Tianling said with a smile. Well, what about procrastination? Do you think I'll wait to die? If you can really put the spirit bug in, you can have a try? Yuan Xinghua Yi Tian see through his mind, now no longer camouflage, suddenly jumped up directly from the ground, the voice sharply hissed. The landing place is unconsciously close to the edge of the field. No tears without the coffin. Yi Tian naturally knew what he was up to. This kind of thing also happened when the great wilderness spiritual realm besieged the evil Emperor Bishio. Even the alliance leader Yan Lai can be sent into the field, not to mention a group of spirit insects. Yi Tian picked it up slowly, and more than 10,000 wire ants, together with 2 shadowless snakes, had jumped on the shield. With Yi Tian's gesture falling, with a hum, the shield of the lock array is opened outside the shield of the 8-pole array, and the shield of the 8-pole array is surrounded in the middle. Withdraw the 8-pole array. Then, Yi Tian murmured again. Sure enough, with his order, the shield of the 8-pole array disappeared out of thin air, and the iron line ants on the shield rushed to the nun. Ah! Such a scene, let Yuan Xinghua exclaim, this time the face becomes very pale. She did not expect that Yi Tian sent the spirit insect in, actually used such a strange means. Originally, she was waiting for the shield around her to close and took the opportunity to take the road. And now, all the life has been cut off, it can be imagined that before long, he will be gnawed by the spirit insect, and eventually die miserably. Du Mingyue. Yuan Xinghua excites the magic power to resist the Tian ant, and looks at Du Mingyue outside the field, crying out. Du Mingyue's eyes looked away, but she didn't turn her head, and she didn't mean to plead for her. Up to now, Yuan Xinghua is really desperate. He has a look at the numerous wire ants, the strong shield outside, and Yi Tian standing on one side. No matter which level, she can't escape. Even if she gets rid of the spirit bug, she can't escape from the shield. Even if she escaped from the shield, she knew that Yi Tian couldn't resist Yi Tian's Miqian sword array. What's more, Yi Tian knows nothing about other means. Looking around, the sea and the sky were all the same. There was no friar. Yuan Qinghuan knew that she was not lucky again, so she raised her right hand and patted it on the Tianling cover. This time, the whole head was smashed, and then there was a loud bang in her body. Even Yuan Ying had a self-explosion. Under the powerful force of the explosion, her body was smashed and turned into countless pieces of meat. Dao Yu, please come back. Yi Tian silently looks at this scene and says to Du Mingyue. At this time, Du Mingyue had tears, wet her cheeks and bowed to Yi Tian deeply. Thank you for your revenge. Take care. Xuanfeng's affairs can be done according to his ability. It's hard for him to repay all his life. After that, he turned and entered the cave. Yi Tian put away the cave and let the invisible disciples and Kunlun Xiu enter their cave at the same time. Then he took back all the spirit insects and disappeared from the original place. The rain is pouring down and the waves are surging. It's back to its original appearance. It's hard to see that there was a fierce battle here, and 4 monks of Yuanyingjing fell down. A day later, Yi Tian, who had changed his costume, finally saw the long coastline in the distance. Before long, Yi Tian's figure flashed and fell to the ground. Here is a rainforest with few people. It stretches for a long time and can't see the end at a glance. Mind open, Yi Tian carefully explored, and did not find any abnormal situation. Then he took out the magic weapon cave with the dead man and went in. Yi Tian took them out of the cave, and then a group of 9 swords flew to the northeast. Because Yuan Zhe and Lu Xing and others have been exposed in the sea, this time, Yi Tian did not choose them. Yi Tian is still the master of the family. 8 dead men are the guardians of Yi Tian, and they keep flying away. Along the way to see a few groups of monks, but nothing happened between each other, just a distant look, they left. A child brother with 8 guards of Jindan realm is not an ordinary person. Although there is Yuanying realm among the monks he met, there is no intersection. This makes Yi Tian less trouble. Otherwise, he believes that if he is single, many people will come to cross-examine him. At least some of the bullies will come to their own trouble. 2 days later, Yi Tian, who was flying, suddenly slowed down and slowly stopped. Young master, have you found anything? Asked a dead man, Lund, in a hurry. Yi Tian looked at a high mountain that looked like a hump in the distance and said, nothing else. When I got here, I thought of a place where several things were left. It's a dangerous place. It's inconvenient to have too many people. You'd better go into the cave first. Well, since you have said that, we have to comply. It's a pity that I didn't fight with you when I came out this time. Every day I can only listen to Yuan Zhe boasting in the cave about how he killed half a step of Yuanyingjing monk. We don't even have the capital to boast when we go back this time. Lund said rather reluctantly. Yi Tian said with a smile, there will be more places to use you in the future. At that time, I will naturally choose strong people. If I want to fight for this opportunity, I will practice in the cave as soon as possible. Maybe there will be a tough battle in a few days? We are not strong enough to fight a tough battle. Yes, I will do as you wish. Long Di and other 8 people all know that Yi Tian's strength is so strong that ordinary opponents naturally don't use these people to fight. However, for those who are not sure about Yi Tian, there is very little they can help. All because of the strength of the problem, did not expect Yi Tian's words, but it is invisible to give them some power, once again aroused the upsurge of their cultivation. In a mountain on the ground, all the dead returned to the cave, but Yi Tian got into the dense mountain forest and soon disappeared. Come out from inside again, Yi Tian is already in the stealth state, and has chosen a certain direction to move forward stealthily. Along the way everything is normal, and did not meet any monks. After 200 or 300 miles, a large red forest appeared in front of us. This is the place named Shuelin that Yi Tian arrived at when he was chased by Xuanyu. Here, Yi Tian shoots Zumaji from Xuanfei and 2 other Yuanyingjing monks into the tree. At that time, the situation was urgent, and Tian had to make a decision to spend money to avoid disaster. But now that he passed here, he naturally wanted to find a way to get Sumi Jia back. Of course, the premise is that there is no trace mark on it, and it has not been taken away by anyone. About tracking marks, Tian thinks that the possibility is almost zero. When he suspected that there was a tracking mark on it, he didn't find that Xuanyu used Xinyin stone to track him. If there is a trace mark on Xumi ring, Xuanyu doesn't need to use Xinyin stone again. However, since so make inference, Tian is still very careful to blood forest close. After all, from the memory of this place, Tian knows that it is a mysterious Jedi with unknown dangers. Tian, who is invisible, first observes the situation nearby. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he slowly approached the blood forest stretching for tens of miles. The trees growing in the blood forest are very strange. They are not drooping willow trees or big trees with luxuriant branches and leaves. Not only the trunk is as red as blood, but also the leaves are bright red, and they are extremely straight. All the branches grow up obliquely, which makes them clean and tidy. But it also looks very weird. Standing outside the forest, Tian saw something. There were countless bright red runes floating slowly in the blood forest. It seemed that there were no rules, but the runes were very dense. Almost an average distance of 1 or 2 feet, there will be such a rune pattern, crisscross, full of the whole blood forest, you can't see the edge at a glance. This is a natural field. After observing for a moment, Tian finally made a decision, which is similar to the field of life and death rhyme and the valley of life and death on Earth. It is a natural field that is not artificially arranged. Generally, it can produce natural field, which definitely has a very special place, that is to say, there must be some secret hidden here. Relative to the secret, Tian didn't pay much attention to the 3 sutras. After thinking for a moment, Tian reaches for a moves a stone on the ground into his hand, and then bends his finger to flick it. The pebble turned into a black light and hit a rune in the blood forest accurately. At the moment when the rune collided with the pebble, the rune within a radius of more than 10 meters nearby emitted countless dense red lines at the same time, shooting at the hit rune. As soon as the dense red lines flash, they meet with each other without any difficulty, and then the red lines flash again and return to their own runes. But Tian throws that pebble, actually under innumerable dense red line penetration, in an instant turns into a piece of stone powder, flutters and falls on the ground. The blood forest returned to the previous state again, and the runes were still swimming irregularly as if nothing had happened before. So it is. According to Yuan Tian's eyes, Tian can see these situations clearly. It turns out that the culprit is these runes. Under the attack of the red line, a hard stone turns into stone powder. If it's flesh and blood, it will turn into a blood mist when it enters the forest. Only from the previous situation, Tian can't tell what kind of state the red line can cause damage to the monks. However, with the hardness of the stone itself, if the ordinary monk of Jindan realm doesn't guard against entering the forest, he will surely fall into it. If you make all kinds of protection, it's hard to say. After all, with a flash of red line, Tian can't judge how much power it has. In order to verify his guess, Tian once again brought a stone into the forest. This time, he avoided all the moving runes and didn't touch any of them. Until the stone fell to the ground, there was no red line emitted by any rune. Tian nodded silently, as he guessed, without touching the rune, there would be no danger. The reason why this place has become a Jedi is that there are too few people who have the supernatural power similar to the source of Heaven's Eye. It is absolutely impossible to enter the blood forest by mistake and not touch any runes. Along the edge of the blood forest, Tian steals slowly and finds that the swaying runes are kept below a certain height, no more than 3 meters away, but there is no rune above 3 meters. This makes Tian a little confused. If the rune can reach the same height as the trees, it is a good place for stealth. No one can think that there will be people hiding here. In this way, Tian slowly flies up and walks over the blood forest. While flying, he observes the runes in the blood forest. At a certain moment, he uses his cloud camera to gently pick up a rune. Although the movement was very light, it still caused a fierce reaction of the surrounding runes, just like breaking small stones into powder before endless red lines appeared again, filling the space. The cloud photographer was shocked to pieces in an instant. Yi Tian shook his head helplessly, continued to use the source eye, carefully observed the rune patterns, and firmly remembered the shape of the rune patterns in his heart. The idea that I wanted to get a rune and study it carefully didn't come true. As 2Ps continue to observe, Yi Tian finds that all the runes are exactly the same. So far, there are no second patterns of the patterns he sees. Before he knew it, Yi Tian came to the place where he had left the 3 Shumi commandments. At that time, he made a special note of the characteristics of the place. He even remembered the trunk of the tree where the Shumi commandment was shot. In front of one of the big trees, Yi Tian looks inside along a bright red hole in the trunk. Sure enough, the Shumi ring is still inside. At that time, he made great efforts to drive straight into the tree trunk and hide in it. Yi Tian's palm moves, and he exerts his magic power against the hole. He has already sucked this Shumi ring into his hand. Yi Tian, who has always been cautious, carefully observed it. There is nothing like it, and no one has ever done anything to leave a trace mark on it. Later, his mind comes into it. The things in it are also right. There are not many of them. They are all the same. Up to now, Yi Tian is completely relieved. Next, nearby, Yi Tian found another 2 big trees with Shumi commandment. He took them out in the same way and checked them again. After confirming that they were all right, he put them away. Now that things have changed here, Yi Tian is ready to leave, but then he has a new idea. This blood forest is very strange. What's the reason for it? If you don't really know the reason, I'm afraid you will always feel a knot in your heart. During the previous flight, Shi Zhenyuan's I scanned the ground several times, but nothing important was found. I think of the field in the Valley of Life and Death because of the existence of Sui Wang's immortal body, which was stolen by the Devil Emperor with the reincarnation array of life and death. I don't know how many years it took to form the field. What is the reason for the formation of this field? Strong curiosity drives Yi Tian to show his source sky eye over the blood forest and look carefully to the ground. And it's no longer within 100 meters of underground depth, has been perspective to more than 1,000 meters, looking for any trace. After a while, Yi Tian finally found something. At the depth of 8,900 meters underground, he found countless bones under a certain forest. The white bones are overlapped and mixed together, with a depth of several hundred meters. Moreover, the area of the white bones is very large, and it extends a little bit to the distance. For a moment, I can't see how many remains there are. Through the shape of the bones, Yi Tian can see that these are left by the human friars, not any orcs. Skeletons, arm bones, leg bones and ribs all look like human beings, but their bones are larger than those of ordinary people. It's supposed to be a group of tall and strong human friars. Finally, Yi Tian saw a complete skeleton, which confirmed the conjecture that it was human remains. Moreover, Yi Tian can see that these should be a group of powerful monks, who have cultivated a strong body. Although the body has rotted for some reason, the bones are well preserved. Although some bones clearly show that the original owner was seriously injured, resulting in limb deformity, resulting in incomplete bones. As for why there are so many friars' skeletons, because this is not the earth, and Yi Tian is just a temporary passerby, but he doesn't think much about pursuing them. Up to now, he has almost understood the cause of the formation of those red runes. This should be a kind of blood evil talisman pattern, because there are too many corpses piled up and buried, the evil spirit is too heavy, the resentment of the dead is not scattered, and it is a talisman pattern formed for a long time. Although there is no danger if you don't touch the rune pattern, if you stay too long in this place with extremely heavy yin and evil spirits, you will still have some adverse effects on your body. Just when Yi Tian was ready to leave, he was stifled, and his eyes turned back. Not far ahead, beside the white bones, a stone room suddenly appeared. The stone room was not so spacious, but what shocked Yi Tian was that there was someone inside. What's more, he knows that man. Xiao Wang. It was the monk who sold his Xianyin stone in Lanfeng City. Xiao Wang. What's more shocking to Yi Tian is that Xiao Wang is sitting in the stone room looking up at himself. Yes, Yi Tian's feeling is right. When Yi Tian looks at this person and touches his eyes, the monk's eyes clearly show a look of shock. Yi Tian's eyes were also surprised, and he turned the focus of his eyes to other places. It seemed that the short-term sight just now was just a coincidence. He just saw something on the ground, not deep into the ground, and saw Xiao Wang's existence. However, he had no idea of the credibility of this practice. The two people are separated by hundreds of meters of thick soil. The moment of eye contact should have some understanding of each other's heart. Immediately, Tian looked at the ground perfunctorily, then released an ordinary flying sword, stepped on the sword, and the imperial sword flew away quickly. It's like running away. After he just flew away for a few breaths, a figure in the blood forest soared into the air and chased the direction of Tian. Sure enough, it has the perspective function. You can't see yourself, and you can see the runes in the blood forest. At this time, Tian no longer had any doubt, and had already determined this matter very safely. It's no wonder that after selling Xianin stone, he seems to have evaporated from the world, lost his trace, and hid under the blood forest. Xuelin is a Jedi. Most of the monks are afraid of it. They don't come here easily. Who would have thought that Xiao would do the opposite? Although Tian's speed is fast, Xiao Wang is in the later stage of Yuanying realm. Naturally, the speed is not comparable to Tian's ordinary flying sword. However, in 3 or 5 breath time, he has caught up with Tian. Baby, walk slowly. I didn't expect that you could see me. Stay and have a talk. Talk about your mother, go to hell. Tian drinks suddenly, turns around, and his mind locks on him. Yuanying Fu in his hand has been inspired. The thin Yuanying talisman turned into a golden palm, which became larger and printed on Xiao Wang's chest. This person had no idea that Tian would fight against him in a word, and that he would fight against his late monk Yuanying Jing with the cultivation of Longmen realm. What's more, he had no idea that the golden palm was so terrible. Bang! With a big bang, under the terrible blow of the golden palm, Xiao Wang tried his best to avoid it, but under the powerful power of the golden palm, he was shot to pieces without any suspense. See the scene, Tian look loose, a fish in the air of Shumi caution, quickly left here. After hiding for 100 miles, Tianzai chooses a wilderness and uses the earth to escape into the underground. This time, he did not take out the time and space tower, nor did he take out any magic weapon cave. It's just that in the depth of 1,000 meters, Xinyan has made a mark in Xiao Wang's Shumi commandment, and then he probes into it to see what's inside. How can this man have so many Shumi commandments? When he saw what was inside, Tian suddenly saw a light. In addition to the 4 magic weapons of Bangxianbing, there were also some top magic weapons and 6 small moving runes. And more of them are Shumi commandments, with the number reaching hundreds. It seems that Xiao Wang is indeed an insidious man who has killed so many monks. Tian took out the small Mu Fu, looked at it, and then put it away. The harvest was good, and Tian was really surprised. Finally, I made up for the small moving runes I had consumed on the way to escape. It is said that this man just sold Xianin stone and got tens of millions of immortal jade. Tian simply recognized hundreds of Shumi precepts and checked them one by one. This investigation lasted 4 or 5 hours. When all Shumi precepts were collected, Tian's face was already smiling. There are more than 10 million immortal jades. There are as many as 7 Shumi commandments with immortal jades. Tian roughly estimated that there were at least 40 or 50 million immortals in it. The rest of Shumi precepts are also extremely rich in wealth. Even Xiao Wang's wealth is the one that Tian has gained the most so far. There are 600 or 700 boxes of spiritual materials, thousands of magic weapons, and more than 300 top-level magic weapons alone. There are countless kinds of ores, monster materials, and bottles. There are some materials that even Tian can't recognize, but they should look very precious. From those bottles and jars, Tian found hundreds of pills suitable for the cultivation of monks in Jingdan realm, and a few suitable for the cultivation of monks in Yuanying realm. It's hard to imagine that Xiao Longji has accumulated so much wealth. This makes Tian marvel. Perhaps some of the underground bones were taken away by this man, or left behind by the monks who have been in the blood forest for many years for various reasons. Tian can only guess like this. These are not important, the important thing is that these things have become the wealth of Tian. However, to Yi Tian's slight regret, there are only 6 Xianin stones the size of fists in this man's Shumi commandment. For this seller, the number is very small. A little calm mood, Leaf Day left underground, fly back to the air, identify the direction, to the direction of Blood Forest. Originally, there was not a long distance. In a moment, Yi Tian had come to the top of the Blood Forest, and through Yuan Tian's eye, he had seen the stone chamber where Xiao Wang had been invisible before. When I was exploring the underground, I suddenly found this stone chamber and saw Xiao Wang. Yi Tian didn't come and carefully explored the situation in the stone chamber. Now, he is not at ease at last and comes back for a thorough investigation. In his eyes, he saw that the stone room was very simple, with only stone tables, stone beds and 2 futons. But in a corner of the stone room, there is an opening, with a stone ladder leading to the bottom. Yi Tian's eye continued to look down and saw a huge, dark cave below the stone ladder. But the materials of the caves are familiar. Xianin stone. Yes, Yi Tian carefully identified that one side of the cave was completely composed of dark Xianin stones. Under the source sky's eye, Yi Tian can see the white lines stretching out on the stone wall, waving slowly. There are so many Xianin stones. I sold them to myself for 200,000 pieces of fairy jade, but I bought them. Under the great joy of Yi Tian, he felt both angry and ridiculous about this move. However, all the things returned to Zhao perfectly, and he got all the wealth of Xiao Wang. This matter is no longer a matter. Suspended in the sky above the Blood Forest, Yi Tian released his mind and observed around to make sure that no one existed. Then he landed slowly, carefully avoiding the moving runes and landing on the ground. After that, he spread 2 Dan all the way down to the ground. Hundreds of meters later, Yi Tian finally came to the top of the stone chamber. He didn't know how Xiao could get in and out of the stone chamber, but he couldn't escape through the big stone at the top of the stone chamber. As a last resort, Yi Tian takes out the fierce sword, makes a hole in the stone, and then falls into the stone chamber. After another observation, Yi Tian followed the stone ladder into the grottos. After staying in the cave for nearly 3 hours, Yi Tian Kai came out of the cave and returned to the ground along the same road. Then he avoided the red rune again and flew over the Blood Forest. No matter how useful these Xianin stones are, Yi Tian still dug out all the Xianin stones in the cave and filled them with 3 Shumi commandments. This time it's full. 2 days later, Yi Tian stopped again when he was flying towards Xuanjia's estimated position in the northeast. There are 2 groups of friars fighting in the range of telepathy. The total number of them is more than 10, which is very chaotic. Yi Tian Gang wants to get around, but he finds out that one of them is Yunzhong, Huang Yanqiu and some friars in Qingfengdu, while the other is obviously from the Xuanjia family. This is a battle of the monks in the spirit realm. Yi Tian can't take part in it at all, but he doesn't leave here, and he gets close to it secretly. He can see it with his naked eyes. If you frequently use divinity to investigate, you will be known by both sides eventually, which is not good for you. More than 10 miles away from both sides of the fierce battle, Yi Tian stops quietly. At this time, the situation on the battlefield was clearly visible in his eyes. There are 6 people in Yunzhong's group, but there are 7 in Xuanjia's group. They are all scarred. I don't know how long they have been fighting here. Among the 6 members of the Cloud family, including Yunzhong and Huang Yanqiu, there are 4 monks of Huaxinjing, and the other 2 are monks of Yuanyingjing. Among the 7 members of the Xuanjia family, 5 of them changed into Xinjing, and the other 2 were Yuanyingjing. At this time, the Xuanjia family obviously had the upper hand. 2 monks of Huaxinjing joined hands to fight against Yunzhong, and the other 3 monks of Huaxinjing also took over the 3 of Yunzhou's Huaxinjing. The other 2 monks of Yuanyingjing also found one to fight together. The 2 sides used various means and magic weapons to attack each other. They were so powerful. At the same time, they also attacked each other from time to time. All the moves were like fighting to the death. But Yi Tian is a little strange. Why didn't the Xian family use the technique of invisibility? Was it broken by Yunzhong? After a while, Yi Tian finds that Yunzhong's defeat is more obvious, but Xuanjia's attack is more and more fierce. It is estimated that if the fierce battle continues, Yunzhong's will suffer a heavy blow. Yi Tian really doesn't want to get involved in the fight between such high-level monks. However, the people of the Cloud family are special, which makes Yi Tian hesitant for a moment. After pondering for a moment, he finally made a decision. After hiding far away from here, he fell to the ground and went underground again. When everything is ready, Yi Tian takes out the magic weapon cave and goes in. Inside, Du Mingyue and Yunqing are practicing. Hearing the sound, they both opened their eyes and stood up from the futon. Yunqing was even more anxious and asked directly, Yi Daoyu, what's the situation outside? Can there be news of the mysterious crack and the mysterious wind? Yi Tian gently shook his head and said, I haven't heard from them yet, but I have already heard from your father, your hall, and King Fenggu. How? Yunqing observes Yi Tian's expression and asks urgently. It looks like she wants to know and is afraid of hearing bad news. She is very nervous. Yi Tian replied concisely, your father and your hall are all well now, but they are fighting with the people of the Xian family nearby. Where is it? Yunqing asked in a hurry, then released his mind and began to investigate the surrounding situation. Soon, Yunzhong and others' fierce fighting pictures had been detected by him. Knowing that Yunzhong and others are in danger, Yunqing gestured and took out a flying sword of Bangxianbing, then rushed out of the cave to rescue. Yi Tian's body moved and stood in front of Yunqing. Master Yun, you must have sensed that the Xian family has an advantage. If you have one more monk in Yuanying, it won't affect the whole war situation, and you have to take one more person in. Yunqing gritted her teeth and said, I know, but my parents are fighting fiercely. Naturally, I can't die without help. If I want to die, I will die together. Yi Tian shook his head and wry smile, Master Yun, this is a bad word. I came to you this time, not to tell you this thing, and then let you stand by, just don't want you to die so rashly. As for how to rescue, I've given overall consideration, but I need your cooperation. What plan? Cloud Ching Lang, immediately facial expression a loose ground asks away. Yi Tian didn't speak directly this time. For the sake of safety, he whispered to Yunqing for a moment, then nodded to Yunqing, what do you think of me, are you sure you can? Yi Daoyu has done a lot for the Cloud family. I don't want you to be implicated innocently. If you really hurt your people, Yunqing will die. After hearing this, Yunqing asked hesitantly. Yi Tian nodded decisively, Master, don't worry, my people, I will be responsible for their safety naturally. Just follow my plan, there should be a great chance to save your father, your mother, and others. Well, Yi Daoyu, listen to you. But now the Cloud family is in danger. After this time, we will surely repay Daoyu's kindness in the future. Yunqing moved and said. Haha, we'll talk about it later. The most urgent thing is to save the people of the Cloud family first. With that, Yi Tian walked out of the magic weapon cave, shrunk it and put it away. Later, he took out the other two magic weapons cave, summoned the disciples and Kunlun Xiu who controlled the Suwatan array flag and Baji array flag, told the situation outside, and then explained the next action plan. Everyone agreed that the two groups of personnel each stealth side, ready to stand by. Next, Yi Tian takes back the two magic cave, takes out the cave where Yunqing lives, and calls her out. The two of them spread a word to each other, and then they both used the technique of Tuduan to come to the ground. Yunqing looked at the fierce battle between the Yuns and Xians, and turned into a light of Tuduan and flew there. Yi Tian holds a small straw stick in his hand, and then flies to the sky. His hand is the same invisible two groups of disciples, Yi Tian active eye, can see them, but they can't see Yi Tian. According to Yi Tian's method, they just follow the grass stick floating in the sky, and then they can know where Yi Tian is. Come to somewhere in the sky, Yi Tian said a few words. The two groups of disciples separated and began to prepare. On the other hand, Yun Zhong and his party were completely at a disadvantage at this time, struggling to fight against the enemy. Fourth Master, you and your wife, hurry up. Let's fight for a while. At a certain moment, Yun Zhong was given the palm of a monk of the Xians, and he was staggering. A priest of the Xians yelled. Go! Can you walk? The monk of Xuanjiao's divine realm who fought against him gave a cold hum, and his sword flashed cold light in his hand. He chopped down with Zhang Su's light. The middle-aged worshipper, with a gesture, turned into a powerful white tiger and rushed to the other side. His body was also a flash, trying to avoid the sword power of the other side. But unexpectedly, the movement was a little slower, and the end of the sword was swept gently, which had cut his right shoulder, and the blood was pouring down. However, the white tiger, which was transformed by his Taoist art, was scattered by the monk Xian. The other members of the Cloud family are not in a better situation. Seeing the old and new injuries, I'm afraid it's hard to get away safely this time. But they all felt that a white shadow was flying towards this side quickly. Qing'er, go, you shouldn't be here. Seeing that the visitor was Yunqing, Yunzhong was very surprised and happy. What they were most worried about was that Yunqing was still alive. However, they were surprised because all the people in the Yunjia family were at the end of their life and they had no ability to protect Yunqing. Father, mother, I can't leave you, or die together. Although Yunqing rushed over with an emotional cry, he secretly whispered to Yunzhong, Father, I don't have time to say more at this time. Take my mother and everyone with me. I have a way to save you. Hurry up. I understand. Yunzhong was stunned, but he sent back a message and continued to scold Yunqing, Go away, you don't need to be here, you have to live, or we will make our own decisions on the spot. Then take care of yourself. Yunqing knows that his father is acting with him. He shouts and turns around. Withdraw, for the Empress of Yunqing. Yunzhong didn't hesitate. He tried his best to use his two swords to push back the two monks of the Xuanjia family. Then he gave a big shout. With another sword, he pushed back the monk of the Xuanjia family who was fighting with Taoist partner Huang Yanxiu. Then he followed Yun Chang and ran away quickly. Chase. The leader of the Xian family is a middle-aged monk who faces the evil. He takes a step forward, stares at the direction where Yunzhong and others are fleeing, and yells loudly. Then he turns into a light to chase away. Father, tell the rest of the people that they must follow the route I'm taking and not deviate from it. Flying in front of the cloud, Qing Dan in a hurry again told the way. Don't worry. Yunzhong responded quickly. At this time, he didn't have time to ask too many questions. He knew that his daughter would never be aimless. Now he continued to sound to other people. Although Yunqing's realm is low, he has been nourishing his energy in the magic cave for many days. He has not only recovered from his injury, but also improved his strength. Although Yunzhong and others have a higher level than her, their mana cost is serious, and their body is scarred, so their speed is naturally affected. Yunqing's speed was a little slower than that of him, but it was also limited. In this way, Shi Dao Dunlight flew away towards Yi Tian's position. Behind all the members of the Cloud family, 7 Xian family friars' imperial swords quickly chased after each other. As soon as they got closer and closer, they would be able to catch up with each other head to tail. But at this time, suddenly there was a buzzing sound. The leader of the Xuanjia family in front of him suddenly heard a slight sound around him, and then an 8-column transparent shield appeared to trap him in it. No, there's an ambush. The man's eyes roared with a sinister roar, and the half-immortal soldier's flying sword in his hand had been chopped to the shield around him. Just as his sword was cut out, there was a sound behind him, and the other 2 monks who came after him were also trapped in a round shield. At this time, Yunzhong, Huang Yanxiu and the other 2 Yun family's incarnation worship suddenly turned around, directly bypassed the trapped 3 monks and rushed to the other 2 monks. The 2 Yuanyingjing friars of the Yun family also found 2 Yuanyingjing old rivals of the Xian family to fight together again. Because of the lack of 3 monks in the Xian family, the power of the subject and the object suddenly changed. With the advantage of 2 to 1, the Cloud family immediately attacked the 2 monks in the Xian family. They were in a hurry and retreated. Yi Tianzi is invisible, closely watching the movement on the battlefield, fearing that the fight between the monks in the spirit realm will affect many of his disciples, and is ready to deal with it at any time. Fortunately, Yunzhong has been reminded by Yunqing to pull the battlefield away from the shield. What Yi Tian is worried about doesn't appear. At this time, it is not good for Yi Tian to talk with Yunzhong directly, because he is a stranger after all, and Yunzhong will never believe himself. And through Yunqing to pass his own meaning in the past, this layer of concern will no longer exist. In this fierce battle, what Yi Tianning can do is to hold down 3 strong men for the Cloud family. As for the final result, it depends on the means of the Cloud family. If the Cloud family is still invincible, Tian will have to withdraw these disciples and stay away from them. He can intervene in the affairs of the Cloud family, but it is not one vote in the end. Trapped in the two fields, the three monks of the Xian family watched their companions being besieged by the Cloud family. In shock and anger, they tried their best to attack the field shield in an attempt to break through and join the regiment. However, no matter the field of Suotang array or the field of Baji array can be broken in a short time by the monks of Leisurely Spirit Realm. What's more, the three monks of Xuanjia Spirit Realm have lost their mana seriously and are seriously injured. After a fierce attack, not only did not break through the siege of the shield, but also consumed a lot of mana again. On the other side of the battlefield, there have been preliminary results. Yunzhong and Huang Yanqiu join hands to besiege a monk in the Spirit Realm. Under the fierce attack, the other side is in danger. Finally, Yunzhong uses a fierce sword to kill the other side on the spot. Yuaning, who escaped from his body, was crushed by Huang Yanqiu's swordlight, and his body and spirit were destroyed. At the same time of killing this man, Yunzhong's figure flashed and he had joined another Washenjing battle group, while Huang Yanqiu came to Yuanying battle group with a tacit understanding. When she fights with the monk of Washenjing, she is always under pressure. However, in the face of the monk of Yuanying, who is much lower, Huang Yanqiu shows great power. Although the loss of mana is huge, but a strong sword light, the mighty mana is still before a sword, then a monk of Yuanying in the Xian family will be killed. But another person panics under, turn round to want to fly to escape but be Huang Yanqiu again body shape a flash stopped in front of. The same cold light flashed by and killed the man. The sword light still kept on, as before, smashing the man's Yuan baby. Just after the end of this battlefield, we can see the resolution in another battlefield where the spirit is changed. Although the monk of the Xian family was powerful, his strength could not be compared with 1 against 3. In an instant, he got 6 or 7 more scars on his body, but Yunzhong's swift and violent sword cut off the man's head, and the other two killed Yuaning, who escaped from him. Follow me. Without stopping, Yunzhong took the other 3 monks to the frontier of Bajishang, where the leading monk of the Xians was trapped. On one side, Yunqing and Yunzhong talked about the number of words, and then said, Yi Daoyu, you can withdraw this array. In the void, Yi Tian's voice rang out, withdraw the battle. With his shouts, the 8 column-shaped field shield disappeared out of thin air. The Xuanjia monk's figure caused by his eyes in it was about to fly away, but 2 flying swords with powerful momentum chopped down in front of him. When his body slightly stagnated and resisted the 2 flying swords, Yunzhong and Huang Yanqiu had already flashed and surrounded him. Another big war begins again. For against one, there's no suspense. After tens of interest, although this man fought to death, he was still killed by Yunzhong and others. There are only the last 2 monks in the realm of God. Seeing the battle situation outside, the 2 men knew that it must be more or less bad today, so they would not attack the strong Suwatan field. But standing in the field, his eyes are burning outside the field. The Xians are very good at stealth. Moreover, in the Lansang spiritual realm, stealth has always been the only secret of the Xians. Besides being passed on to Yunqing by Xuanxie, it has never been exported. In the present situation, they can easily guess that some friars are using the technique of invisibility to arrange the array, which makes them in danger. One of the friars with a little gray hair said in a cold voice, I don't care who you are outside. Since you have to get involved in the right and wrong between the Xians and the Yuns, I'm sorry to wait for you. Today's event, even if we fall, you will be pursued and killed forever by the Xian family. Yi Tian just sneers. He says in his heart, what is the pursuit of Xuanjia? He has been wanted by Xuanyu. What can he do? Next, the man said again, so, I'll give you a chance to surrender to the Xian family now. I can forget the past and give you rewards that you can't even dream of. Well, Xianwei, what's the point of saying this at this time? Die today. One side of Cloud Zhong suddenly cold hum a say. Don't you want to know about Xianlai and Whirlwind? Why don't we make a deal? The old man named Xianwei didn't pay attention to Yunzhong's attitude, but said Du Zi. Don't delay. No one will save you. Cloud Zhong has already seen through the other party's mind, at the moment yelled, withdraw the array. Yi Tian's disciples only obeyed Yi Tian's orders. After Yin Zhong finished shouting, no one did anything. It was only when Yi Tian added that the shield disappeared out of thin air. In order to prevent Xianwei and his followers from killing in the chaos, Yunzhong launched a crazy attack at the moment when the shield disappeared. The 4 flying swords with powerful momentum cut off the 2 of them separately. By this time, the 4 of them had no longer reserved any mana, and they almost did their best. Originally, Xianwei and his wife had the idea of using thunder to sweep the space around the field and kill the people who set up the array. However, the attack of the people of He Yun's family is too fierce. If they still follow the original idea, they will be killed on the spot. At this time, the 2 remaining members of the Xin family had to rise up, and the last Yu Yong fought with the 4 members of the Yun family. And now they have even lost their last chance to escape. If you leave the regiment rashly, every monk of the Xin family will face the pursuit of 2 monks of the Yun family. They can't fight each other with 2 fists and 4 hands, and they have been drenched with the powder to break the invisibility by Yin Zhong and others, and they can't use the skill of invisibility for the time being. Although the last fierce battle was short, it was also the most fierce. More than 10 minutes later, another monk of the Xuanjia family was killed by a worshipper of the Yunjia family during the fighting. Now, Xianwei was the only monk left. For against 1, even in Xuanwei's heyday, it was hard to defeat the enemy, not to mention that he was at the end of his rope. Between 3 and 5 breaths, with a schwa, Yun Zhong cut off his right arm with a sword as fast as lightning. Huan Yanxiu took this opportunity to cut off his left arm with a sword. Another Cloud family worshipper took advantage of Xuanwei's broken arms and slapped him heavily on his belly. The mana penetrates the body and hits Xuanwei's Yuanying. Ah! I don't know if it's because of the broken arms or the destruction of Yuanying. Xianwei let out a dull hum, and his breath immediately withered down. Yunzhong is not at ease. He presses his palm on Xuanwei's elixir field, and his mana pours in again. He makes a frenzy in it. He confirms that Yuanying is destroyed and elixir field is broken, and then he stops. At this time, Yi Tian released 2 magic weapon caves one after another, one of which took back the disciples who had set up the array, and the other was the magic weapon cave given to Du Mingyue. Later, Yi Tian showed his figure and said to Yun Zhong, "Elder, it's inconvenient to say more at this time. Please enter the magic weapon cave. You need to recover your injury and search for the soul of this person. I'll take care of the rest." At this time, Yun Zhong realized that the person who designed the rescue was just a monk in Longmen. He couldn't help hesitating about Yi Tian's words, but Yunqing said first, "Thank you, father and mother. Let's go in. Yi Daoyu is absolutely trustworthy." After hearing what Yunqing said, Yun Zhong knew that there must be a reason, so he didn't hesitate. With a wave of his hand, he summoned 2 Yuanying Jing monks who had swept the battlefield. He took the 7 Xumi commandments from them and sent them to Yi Tian. "Yi Xiaoyu, this is the spoils of war. You should take it, and the Yun family's will be expressed later." Yi Tian gang is about to refuse. Yunzhong has handed it to Yi Tian and said, "It shouldn't be too late. It's hard for Yi Xiaoyu. After a few hours, if we get to a safe place, let's meet again." Smell speech. Yi Tian also took Xumi Jia, then took out a bottle of healing pill refined with the liquid of nature, handed to Yunzhong. "This pill has healing effect, please take this pill." Yunzhong is not polite either. He takes the jade vase, and Shong Yeti and nods slightly. Then he takes all the people into the magic cave. When all the people went in, Yi Tian hit it with a magic power and narrowed the magic weapon cave. Then he put it away and disappeared from the original place. This time, Yi Tian changed his previous route to a desolate and remote place. Today's move, but for the harvest is not shallow, naturally do not have to go to find the location of the Xuanjia. Yunzhong and others captured a monk of Xuanjiawa's spiritual realm in their life. Under the soul searching, not to mention the location of the Xuanjiawas, they might be able to get some of the Xuanjiawa's core secrets. This saves a lot of trouble. As the saying goes, it's true to treat others like yourself. Invisible flying more than 100 miles away, Yi Tian came to a big mountain named Qingyou Mountain. Once more, he went deeper than 200 miles. Yi Tian came to the bottom of a cliff with dense trees. After observing around for a while, he immediately disappeared into the earth and went thousands of meters underground. For the sake of caution, he left 8 4-star Liangxingkong on the ground. At this time, the distance and Cloud Zhong were not more than half an hour. The other party should still be healing. Tian did not mean to meet them immediately. Then he took out the big seal magic weapon, created a super huge space, and took out the magic weapon cave containing the disciples, 100 dead men and 20 retinues. Then everyone was called out. All in all, 230 people are not crowded in such a large underground space. Everyone, I had a fierce fight with others a few days ago. I got some pills that are suitable for the cultivation of the golden elixir realm. I'll give them out here. Everyone, all equally distributed. With these words, Tian took out hundreds of pills from Xiao Wang and gave them to Mieba and other disciples. In addition to 2 pills per person, there are more than 10 left, which are collected by Tian. As for Xian, Tian gave her a bottle of pills from Xuanfei to assist Longmen realm cultivation. And the youngest disciple Bihuan, Tian, also gave her a bottle of pills to assist the monks in the cave. As for Qin Luotian and Ir, Tianzhou had already made more effective pills for them. Naturally, they didn't have to divide up the spoils. Get pills, everyone is in a good mood. Tian can take out such a number of pills at one time, deeply shocked. To know that pills are not ordinary things, refining a pill often requires more than 10 kinds, more than 20 kinds of spirit material, and each kind of spirit material is extremely valuable. Some people often try their best to get a pill. But now Tian assigned 2 to no one. Tian said before that he would collect more spiritual materials to refine pills for them. In this case, it's really unreasonable that cultivation doesn't advance by leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, it's not so easy to get spiritual materials. Just as he was thinking about this, Tian took out a magic weapon cave again, and then took out hundreds of jade boxes to pick out spiritual materials from it at any time and let his disciples plant them in the cave medicine garden. This is the first time that Tian checks the spirit material he got from Xiao Wang. After seeing this, he is very happy. There are many valuable spiritual materials in it. I don't know how Xiao longed for them. What a gift boy! Tian is secretly complacent as he selects the spirit material. Of these hundreds of jade boxes, 60% or 70% of the spiritual materials can continue to be planted, and the rest can only be consumed at one time. Even if planted, there is no way to continue to grow. When these jade boxes were finished, Tian took out more than 100 jade boxes and stone boxes again. These are from the previous fight with people, and all the spiritual materials are gathered here. Similarly, there are some precious spiritual materials in it, which are of great use to Tian. After the cultivation of these spiritual materials, Tian took out again the 7 Shumi commandments that Yun Zhong had just given him. Under the imprint of divine thoughts, Tian took the lead in taking out the spiritual materials one by one. This time, Tian gained a lot. There were more than 300 boxes of various spiritual materials. As before, some jade boxes contain more than one spiritual material, and the number of them even reached as many as 5 or 6. In this case, Tian had to close the cave medicine garden which had been planted with Linkai before, and took out the 3rd cave to plant Linkai. After distributing all the spiritual materials, Tian starts to check the other items in Shumi commandment. The pills in it were either taken by the monk of Washinjing or the monk of Yuanyingjing. Tian couldn't use them for the time being. But such pills, each one is valuable. Often a pill is hard to find, stay around, after natural great use. The wealth of Xuanjia monks can be seen from these Shumi precepts. The number of Xinyu in each Shumi commandment is different, but the number of the least is not less than 1 million, and the number of the most is even tens of millions. Together, Tian's wealth has increased by nearly 40 million. The amount of fairy jade on Tian's body is too much, and it has reached the level that he can't use up. After checking Xinyu, he made a decision again. All the monks present, no matter they were disciples, retinues, or dead men, distributed 100,000 Xinyu for cultivation resources. After the decision was made, almost everyone was shocked. 100,000 Xinyu is a big number for every friar. Once Tian's 2 female disciples, Jinji and Yuye, had to calculate how to use them for a fairy jade. Bihuan, the youngest disciple, earns only 4 immortals a year. In order to redeem her 200 immortals, she has to serve the Qin family in Lanfeng City for 50 years. 100,000 xianyu, these friars may have this wealth at the moment, and some of them are also given by Yi Tian. Not long ago, Yi Tian gave each person 50,000 xianyu. A person with such wealth is totally different from Yi Tian's giving more than 200 people 100,000 xianyu each at one time. That would be an astronomical figure of more than 20 million xianyu. Looking at the crowd's expression, Yi Tian just smiles. You don't have to worry about xianyu in the future. Your task is to improve your cultivation as soon as possible. Maybe there are many places to work hard in the future, and I don't want anyone to fall behind. You know what I mean. I understand. The crowd nodded. Yi Tian said no more. He took out some Shumi commandments and gave them to his disciples. They were asked to enter the cave and distribute them. Anything else? Sishao Yunxian didn't leave immediately, a pair of words and stop appearance. Leaf Day can't help asking. Master, our 20 retinues have been enjoying the Master's resources since they entered the Longsang spiritual realm, but they have never done anything. So we are neglecting our duty. Please give us more opportunities. Xiao Yunxian pursed her lips, looked at Yi Tian's eyes and said, well, as long as you have enough strength, naturally you have something to do. Do you understand? Yi Tian nodded slightly. Understand, we will improve our strength as soon as possible. Xiao Yunxian, a little disappointed to say, then long eyelashes blinked to see Yi Tian, turned into the cave. Yi Tian gently shakes his head and ignores her. Instead, he continues to check the items in the 7 sutras. For ordinary treasures, Yi Tian can no longer arouse any interest. He mainly looks at the jade slips in the 7 Shumi commandments. Take out a jade slip and stick it on your forehead. Yi Tian takes a glance at the contents recorded in it. It's a set of major skills, which is called Jiufu Xinjing. After a few eyes, I didn't have much interest, so I put it down. Then look at the second jade slip. It's also a kind of skill. The level is not very high. One after another, Yi Tian is a little disappointed. There is no one inside that records some secret jade slips of Xian's family. It's basically a kind of skill and secret method. It seems that the skill and secret method in it are very common. Even the invisible secret method of Xian family has not been recorded. Think about it. The most secret things of the Xian family must be managed very strictly. They will never let the jade slips wander outside. The Xians kept their location secret, not to mention their privacy. It is one of the jade slips that arouses Yi Tian's interest. There are only a few words about the Xingyi tribe. After reading it, Yi Tian is very excited. The Holy Wing people, who live in seclusion, are mysterious and hard to find. There are only tens of thousands of people. It is said that they came from a certain spiritual realm, or holy spiritual realm, also known as the Earth Star. They are all hands and bodies, and their limbs are the same as the human race. They have wings behind them. They are good at flying and escape very fast. This family is good at the art of pills, and the people enter the country very quickly. The Xingyi people are unconquered with the world, jealous of evil, modest and polite. There are many powerful people with high level in the family, and their strength is extremely strong. The people are united and advance and retreat together. They would rather provoke the aristocratic family than Xingyi. I didn't expect that, as I guessed. The Holy Wing clan really came from the Earth Star. I remember that in Kunlun Mountain, Xiao once said that there are Kunlun people in other spiritual regions, and even some traders of Kunlun people. It can be imagined that there should be more than a few Kunlun people who leave Earth for other spiritual realms. It's just that it's impossible to infer for the time being whether the first Xingyi people or the first Kunlun people came first. Perhaps originally on Earth, the Kunlun people were originally the Xingyi people, but later they practiced in the Kunlun Mountains and became the Kunlun people. Maybe these Kunlun people changed their names when they came to a new spiritual realm. In any case, these mysteries can only be known by seeing the true Holy Wing people. After reading this jade slip, Yi Tian just looked at the others and put them away. There is nothing in it that can arouse Yi Tian's interest. After putting away the 7 Shumi commandments, Yi Tian ponders for a moment, spreads his voice outside the cave, and calls out Ko Yuanxuan, the elder martial brother in Kunlun cultivation. Grandmaster. See Tian call, this person is still a pair of polite appearance, to Yi Tian salute. For such etiquette, Yi Tian has been numb, just slightly nodded and said, some things, I want to ask, when you are in the Earth Star, you may have heard about the Holy Wing Clan? Ko Yuanxuan shook his head decisively, I've never heard of the words from my grandmaster. The first time I heard about the Xingyi clan, I heard that Shizu Zian mistook us for Xingyi clan. In private, we Kunlun people are also confused. Are we really the same as those Holy Wing people? Yi Tian pondered, I have never seen with my own eyes what the Holy Wing people are like. But according to the written records, the Holy Wing clan is indeed consistent with your characteristics. It is also recorded in the text that the Holy Wing people originally came from the Earth Star. Maybe the Earth Star has another name, Holy Land and Spiritual Realm. Have you heard of this name? Holy Land? Ko Yuanxuan repeated it in a low voice, shaking his head blankly. Yi Tian didn't feel any surprise, but murmured, I think before leaving the Lansang Spiritual Realm, you should contact the Holy Wing clan anyway. What unexpected harvest might you get? This sentence seems to speak to Ko Yuanxuan, or to talk to himself. Immediately, without waiting for Ko Yuanxuan to respond, he changed the topic. By the way, did you try to practice the Tian Linji cultivation method I gave you before? Hearing Yi Tian's inquiry, Ko Yuanxuan's face was very happy, but he still replied respectfully, if we go back to our grandmaster, we are practicing the secret skill of Tian Linji every day, but we haven't had a chance to show it to our grandmaster. This skill is really suitable for our Kunlun practice, as if it was specially made for us. As he spoke, a pair of flesh wings behind Ko Yuanxuan slowly lifted up. Then, under the operation of mana, a layer of aura film suddenly formed on the originally bare flesh wings, and the wings were completed in a flash. Then, Ko Yuanxuan stirred up his meat wings, but suddenly the whole person disappeared from the original place and appeared at the other end of the space. As if just at that moment, completed a very short distance blink in general. Grass. Yi Tian couldn't help spitting out a word of truth again. He was a little silly. With his present eyesight, he didn't see Ko Yuanxuan's flight track, as if it was really a blink. He disappeared from here and appeared again. Even though his escape speed is extremely fast, it is still a little bit of shadow. The speed may not be slower than that of Ko Yuanxuan just now, but there are always traces to follow. But this kind of flying skill, which is similar to short distance and small blink, is really awesome. Using this kind of flying skill can avoid the enemy's attack in flight and make the enemy lose the target. If the flight distance is longer and the speed is faster, it will definitely be a big escape weapon. Can it be faster? Yi Tian thought to turn a few turns, feel Chin inquiry to ask away. Of course, I can. It's just that the space here is too narrow to be used. If the environment permits, I can show it to my grandmaster. Ko Yuanxuan returned respectfully. Yi Tian waved his hand, don't worry about it. It's not suitable to go out at this time. There will be a chance later. With this saying, Yi Tian has already begun to consider whether to find a suitable bird skeleton to connect with a heavenly wing. Anyway, he has got the winged grass from the secret library of the human race in the spiritual realm of the wilderness. When he needs to use the wings, he uses them, and when he doesn't need to use them, he hides them. Anyway, when I run away, I don't care whether I'm handsome or not. It's important to save my life. At ordinary times, the wings hide does not affect their handsome. His mind became active at once, but it was only a temporary thought. If it was really put on the agenda, he would have to make more plans and think about everything thoroughly. After putting away all the magic weapons, Yi Tian enters the time and space tower. He chose to practice inside. The speed of time here is 3 times slower than that outside, which is most suitable for his own practice. About 3 or 4 hours later, Yi Tian got up and came out from inside. Take out Du Mingyue's magic weapon cave again, open the forbidden system and enter it. Yi Daoyu, I'm waiting for you. The Cloud Qing full-faced joyfully welcomed to come over. Du Mingyue follows in the Cloud Qing's body side, a pair of clever daughter-in-law's appearance. Yi Tianxiao nodded to her and looked at Yun Zhong and others who had already got up to meet her. How is Master Yun's injury? Yi Tian asked with a smile. In fact, he didn't need to ask. He also knew that after such a long time of Dan Yao recovery, they must have recovered. Sure enough, Yun Zhanghao laughed. Yi Xiaoyou's elixir is really the holy medicine for healing. We not only recovered from our injuries, but also recovered our mana. Who is Yi Dao Yu? In the future, the Cloud family will be very close. At this time, Yi Tian naturally did not want to tell his details, so he gently shook his head and said, "It's a long story. I'll have a chance to talk about it in detail with my predecessors in the future. I don't know if I can get any information from this person." With that, Yi Tian takes a glance, and a corner of the cave has become the Xianwei of the dead. Yun Zhong's smile gradually faded away and pointed to the futon beside him. He said, "Sit down, Yi Xiaoyu. It's a long story. Let's talk about it in detail." Yi Tian is not polite. He sits on the futon according to his words. Yun Zhong and others also sit on the ground. After pondering for a moment, he says again, "Listen to Qinger, Yi Xiaoyu is very interested in a transmission channel of the Xian family. Do you want to go to the Luotian spiritual realm through this transmission channel?" Yi Tianxing asked Yunqing about this space passage, so it's not unusual for Yunqing to infer that he wants to borrow this passage. Now Yunzhong asks, he is very happy. Since Yunzhong can know that this passage leads to Luotian spiritual realm, he should know something about the space passage. "Yes, I have this plan, but I don't know the location of Xuanjia's transmission channel, so I can't enter it all the time." Yi Tian's purpose also lies in this, since has already said this situation, he also has nothing to hide, simply frankly admit to say. Hearing this, Yunzhong pondered, "I have searched Xuanwei's soul just now. I already know a lot about the secrets of the Xianwei family. Among them is the message of this space transmission channel. However, unfortunately, the space channel is located in the other side of the world where the Xian family is located, and it is impossible for the Xian family to let any outsider into that side of the world. I'm afraid Yi Xiaoyu will be disappointed in this matter, and I can't help him now." Yi Tian had already been prepared. The space passage in the heaven and earth where the Xian family is located was something he had expected. He didn't feel disappointed. Instead, he asked, "Master Yun should have known the location of the heaven and earth where the Xian family is?" Yunzhong nodded, "Yes, I didn't know it, but I guess it. Through Xuanwei's memory, I already know, but because of this, I persuade Yi Xiaoyu to give up this idea. The world of Xuanwei's family is extremely secret, and it's dangerous to get close to it. And if you want to enter without being noticed by the Xian family, it's impossible." When Yi Tian heard the speech, he said with a smile, "In this case, it's okay for me to talk about it in detail. If I really can't help it, I'll give up completely." Yun Zhong shook his head helplessly and said with a bitter smile, "In my opinion, Yi Xiaoyu didn't give up, so he wanted to know the details. I'll tell you in detail how to make a decision at that time. Yi Xiaoyu should be cautious. The space where Xuanjia lived is really very secret. No wonder it has been a mystery in Lansong Lingyu for countless years. If it wasn't for soul searching, I'm afraid I would never have thought it was there even if I wanted to break my head." Yunzhong first sighed, then continued, "The entrance of that space, who could have thought it was above the void? There are many void cracks in the void, and one of them is the entrance of Xuanjia space. Just imagine how terrible the void crack is. If the friars encounter it, they are afraid to avoid it. How can they easily enter into the void crack? In the void, there are few people to visit, and the people of the Xian family can hardly be met. Even if he was caught by someone, he would be killed by the monk of Xian family at the first time. Therefore, only the Xian family can walk in the outside world, and no one can enter that heaven and earth. There is not only one void crack at the entrance of Xuanjia space, but there are as many as 13 places, 12 dead doors and 1 living door. Even if you know the approximate location of the entrance, no one dares to try it easily. What's more, the void crack is just a door. Entering the crack does not mean entering the Xuanjia. After passing through the void crack, it will be transmitted for a short time, and then it will encounter the powerful defense field arranged by Xuanjia. Unfortunately, the method in Xuanwei's memory is that the people of Xuanjia in the space need to open the field to get in. So it's impossible to enter without the help of Xian's family. Maybe there are other ways to get in and out of the defense field of the Xuanjia family, but the Xuanjia family must be secretive, unless the most core people, ordinary Xuanjia children, will not let them master this method, which is also the prohibition of the Xuanjia family. Yi Tian always listens quietly, a pair of silent appearance, but in the heart is fast analysis digestion. Cloud Zhong said these situations. It's not difficult to get into the void. I came down from the void, experienced turbulence and cracks in the air, and avoided many dangers. I am familiar with the situation there, which is easy to solve. As for Xuanjia's defensive field, Yi Tian knew very well that if the field could be opened from the inside, there must be a way to open it from the outside. It's just that Xuanjia's field may be very strong. Before seeing it with his own eyes, he is not sure what the defense field is, and he is not sure how to open it. However, my attainments in the field are not comparable to those of the previous generations. Moreover, the field ancient book that on Yuan Mountain gave me describes a vast variety of fields, which are all ancient strange arrays. Even if there is no record in it, it is not difficult to find similar existence. This should not be a big problem. Thinking about this, Yi Tian continued to ask, if you can enter the Xuanjia, how can you find the space channel? What's the layout of the Xuanjia? Or what do you need to pay attention to in case of secret transmission? Yun Zhong once again wry smile, even if Yi Xiaoyu has passed through the void cracks, and cannot be aware of the Xuanjia into the Xuanjia space, to secretly through the space channel to send out, is also extremely difficult. There are 8 cities in Xuanjia's space. Xianwei lives in Xuancheng, and the space channel is located in Tiancheng. So Xianwei didn't know exactly the location of the space passage, only knew that it was in a certain range. In order to prevent the offended people from leaving the Xuanjia through the space channel and entering the spirit realm of Luotian, the Xuanjia not only made 5 false space channel entrances at that space channel, each of which was lifelike, and reached the level of using the false to confuse the true, but also had the guard of the monks who changed the divine realm at the channel entrance. In addition, whether true or false, the space channel also has strong field protection. Even Xianwei, a monk of the Xuanjia family, has never been to the entrance of the space passageway. He gathered all the information through various channels. The reason why Xuanjia is powerful is because of this entrance of space passage. And the people of the Xian family, through this channel, enter the spirit realm of Luotian, and get resources from there to provide them to the Xian family continuously. As Xianwei knows, there are Xians in Lansan and Luoshanling, and they are not collateral branches. They are members of the direct Xians from Lansan to Luoshanling. The aura of Luotian Lingyu is relatively thin, and its overall strength is far weaker than that of Lansan. Therefore, the Xuanjia branch also exists in the powerful side of Luotian Lingyu. Yi Tian silently listens to what Yun Zhong said. When the other party says this, Yi Tian asks, Master Yun, do you know which space channel can transmit the highest level of monks? Yun Zhong said, it's not difficult to speculate that, except for the great friars of Yupu realm, there is no problem for the friars of Huashan realm to transmit. Because some of the core members of the Xian family often go in and out of the Luotian spiritual realm, and the branch of the Xian family in the Luotian spiritual realm also has a number of monks in the spirit realm. Therefore, even if Yi Xiaoyu gets lucky enough to enter the Luotian spiritual realm through the space channel, not only the Xuanjia people can chase him at any time, but even the branch of the Xuanjia family in the Luotian spiritual realm will join in the chase. And if you want to get in touch with the entrance of the space passage and find the real entrance to the spirit realm of Luotian, it is also dangerous. Yi Tian nodded in silence and admitted that from the perspective of Yun Zhong, what he said was completely correct, but he was not an ordinary monk. Although these problems were difficult, they could not be solved. Master Yun, can you tell me the location of the void crack at the entrance of Xuanjia heaven and earth? Yi Tian then asked. There's no problem with this. The void crack is above Luoma Lake. It goes up from Luoma Lake to the void. With these words, Yun Zhong took out a jade slip, stuck it on his forehead for a moment, and then handed it to Yi Tian. I have depicted the void cracks at the entrance, a total of 13 void cracks. When Yi Xiaoyu saw the void cracks arranged in this way, he arrived at the entrance. The real entrance has been marked by me. However, I still advise you that Xuanjia Xiandi is extremely dangerous. I'm so grateful to you. But I don't want to put you in danger because of the news. Thank you for your advice. I'll take it into consideration. Yi Tian embraces boxing, and he has a good feeling for Yun Zhong. If we didn't know this from Xuanwei's memory, according to Yi Tian's previous plan, even if we found Luoma Lake, we would not have thought that the entrance of Xuanzhou's space was above the void. Even if thought of, in the face of more than a dozen void cracks, Yi Tian certainly will not rashly enter them. Yi Daoyu, what my father said is really good advice. Don't take it lightly. At this time, Yunqing suddenly interceded, and she saw that what Yi Tian Gang had just said had a lot of perfunctory elements. On the contrary, it seemed that the determination of Xuanjie Xiandi had been very firm. Thank you, Mr. Yun. It's about my life. I'll be careful. I heard from Taoists that Master Yun was framed by the Xians and killed Xiantong, a member of the Xian side branch. Although the real murderer is dead, 3 people who know about the Yuan family have been captured by me. I don't know if it is of any use to Master Yun? Yi Tian nodded his thanks. Yi Xiaoyu has to worry about this. Although there are no witnesses, it's also very important for the Cloud family. I'll give it to you when it's convenient. This is a little bit of my heart. It's only so much for the time being. When things get better in the future, the Cloud family will make every effort to repay. Cloud Zhong says a word. The hand took out the sumi caution that had been prepared before and handed to the Leaf Day in front. Yi Tian stretched out his hand to stop him and said, Master Yun is so outsider. Zian is Ye's disciple, while Lu Daoyu is Ning Yue's mother and Xuanfeng's Taoist partner. Although the relationship is tortuous, it is not an outsider after all. There's no need to say any more words of thanks. Otherwise, I'll become a man of gratitude. Well, Yi Xiaoyu is a real lover. If you don't want to, you don't want to. But I'll tell you what I'm talking about. From now on, Yi Xiaoyu's business will be Yun's business. But if you need something, just give me a command. I'll go through fire and water. Yunzhong took back Sumishio, said with a laugh, obviously very happy mood. Yi Tianlu held his fist, but he didn't say anything. But when he glanced at Du Mingyue in the corner, he saw that Du Mingyue was full of worries. He asked Yunzhong, Master Yun, what's the situation between Master Xuanxie and his friends of Xianfeng? Hearing the inquiry, Yunzhong sighed and said, both of them attach importance to emotion and righteousness. They are kind-hearted and kind-hearted. They also recognize the principle of death. Now they are all imprisoned by Xuanji in the space where Xuanji is located. There are not only many organs, but also strict guards. The best outcome is to be imprisoned for a lifetime. This also has to be Xuanji's kindness. If Xuanji is in a bad mood at any time, they may be in a more dangerous situation. After all, the existence of the dark crack is still a threat to the position of his master. Yi Tian nodded again, thought about it, and said, can you mark the location where they are imprisoned? Maybe if you have a chance to enter the Xuanjie space, you can try 1 or 2. No, absolutely not. I can only advise Yi Xiaoyu to take risks for his own business, but if he has made up his mind, I can't help him. But I can't let you take any more risks because of their father and son's affairs. Otherwise, if something happens, I'll be in trouble all my life. The courtyard resolutely shakes head to refuse away. Yes, Yi Daoyu, you can't do anything at this time. Don't take meaningless risks. Yunqing also followed the way of persuasion. But Yi Tian gently shook his head and said, if you can do it, then you can do it. If you can't do it, then you can't do it. Master Yun, although you draw a map, I will act according to circumstances. Yunzhong hesitated for a moment and said, well, I'll give you all the space I know about Xuanjia. Since Yi Xiaoyu has decided to break into Xuanjia, he can only make more preparations and know more about the situation inside. With these words, Yunzhong again took out a jade slip and pasted it on his forehead. A moment later, Yunzhong has finished the painting and handed it to Yi Tian. As before, Yi Tian pasted it on his forehead and checked it through his mind. When he saw the contents of the painting, although he had been prepared, he was surprised. There are thousands of miles in the space where the Xuanjia is located. There are 8 cities in it. If you think about it, what a huge number the Xuanjia population will be. It's really worthy of being the first archaic family in Lansong Lingyu. After thousands of years of reproduction, the Xuanjia family has become a giant. It's no wonder that Xuanfei, who is just a sidekick, can be unscrupulous in the Lansang spiritual realm. The names of the 8 cities are Xianhuang of heaven and earth and Honghuang of the universe, respectively. The place where Xuanxie and Xianfeng are held is Tianchang, the first city of Xuanjia. The place of detention Yunzhong made an accurate mark somewhere in the city, and the other cities and important positions were also marked one by one in the jade slips. It's just that Yunzhong has just delineated a general scope of the space channel leading to Luo Tian's spiritual realm, and the specific one can't be marked out. Even so, this information is very important to Yi Tian. Yi Tian kept the contents firmly in his mind, and then put the jade slips into Shumi commandment. For a moment, everyone in the magic cave was speechless. Finally, Du Mingyue came over from the corner and asked in a complex voice, "Are Yi Daoyu ready to go to the empty air next?" Yi Tian nodded slightly. "Since I know there, I always want to have a look. As for Xian, I'll stay later. I can't let him take risks with me." Besides, the 3 people of the Jiang family also stayed. In addition, can Du Daoyu and Master Yun give me the next keepsake? If I have a chance to meet Master Xuanxie and Master Xianfeng, I also have a certificate to let them believe my identity. Is it really decided? Du Mingyue pursed her lips and asked. Although she didn't know Yi Tian for a long time, she did too many things for her mother and daughter and saved their lives many times. This kind of helplessness made her feel uncomfortable. When Yi Tian saw her appearance, he couldn't help laughing and said, "Don't make it look like parting from life and death. You should believe that Yi has not yet known that he knows he will die, and he still has to die. If not, I'll come back naturally." Du Mingyue nodded silently and said, "Xianfeng and Jiagong are the same thing. Yi Daoyu can do it according to his ability." With that, Du Mingyue took off the old pearl flower that she wore in her hair and reluctantly handed it to Yi Tian. "As long as Xianfeng sees this, he will know that I gave it to you." Yunqing also looked pale. He took out a woodcut statue from Zumaji and found that the woman on it was Yunqing himself. Yi Tian solemnly took over, put away, waved, and then went out of the cave, took out the cave where the disciples lived, and called Xian out. Then he took out the cave where the dead lived and asked the 3 dead to take Zhang Wei out. These people follow Yi Tian back to Yunzhong's cave. The 3 dead men put the 3 people of the Jiang family into the cave and went out according to Yi Tian's instructions. Yunzhong and others just glanced at the 3 people, then ignored them, but turned their eyes on Xian. Before in the cave, Du Mingyue had already met Yunzhong and others under the introduction of Yunqing, but in addition to Yunqing, the rest of the family met Xian for the first time. "Yener, come here and meet my great-grandfather and great-grandmother." Cloud Qing waved to Purple Yen to call away. Seeing the grandson's daughters are all graceful and beautiful, Yunzhong and Huang Yanqiu are very happy, and they take Xian's hand to ask. Looking at the family gathering, Yi Tian waited for a moment. Until Yunzhong and Huang Yanqiu stopped, he said to Xian, "Xian, I'm going to find a space channel in Xuanjia recently. If it goes well, I will leave the Lansang spiritual realm. If it doesn't go well, maybe I won't leave for a while. You can stay here and stay with your family. If you have a chance in the future, you will come to Lansang Lingyu as a teacher." "Master, do you have to leave?" Suddenly heard the news, Xian rushed to hold Yi Tian's arm asked. Yi Tian nodded silently, imperative. Xian looks dark. She looks back at Du Mingyue and all the people in the Cloud family, and then turns back to look at Yi Tian. It's really hard for her to say anything. That's it. Yi Tianling looks down, bows his hand to the Cloud family and turns out of the cave. "Master, I want to say goodbye to all my senior brothers and sisters." Xian's tears flowed down and came out with a trot. Yi Tian nods silently, allowing Xian to return to the cave. It took Xian a long time to walk out of the cave under the wave of many elder martial brothers and elder martial sisters, and the tears on her face increased a lot. "Master, promise Xian to come back." Seeing Yi Tian at the entrance of the cave, Xian said tearfully. Yi Tian nodded his head speechless, put away the magic weapon cave and disappeared from the ground. He knew that next, Yunzhong would properly settle Du Mingyue and Xian, and it was impossible for their mother and daughter to follow them and continue to be chased by the Xian family. Out of the ground, Yi Tian took back the release of Liang Xingkong, wiped a face, dispelled just parting, stealth to the northeast. Half a month later, Tian was suspended in the sky above the endless Luoma Lake. He opened his mind and looked around. In the past half a month, he kept a low profile and went on his way. Although he met many friars along the way, Tian didn't meet those people to avoid extraneous affairs. After all, not long ago, Tian just helped Yunzhong and others kill 7 monks of the Xian family. He exposed himself before he didn't want to go into the space of the Xian family alone. After some observation, Tian didn't find anything unusual. At last, he took a look at the layers of microwave on Luoma Lake, and his body moved straight to fly stealthily in the high air. Tian flew higher and higher, and the lake was farther and farther away from him. At last, he could see the irregular lakeshore of Luoma Lake, surrounded by a wave of beautiful water, and the mountains below became smaller and smaller, like green steamed bread. Until it continued to fly upward, Luoma Lake finally became a mirror, and gradually narrowed into the last bright color. The continuous mountains were also a dark color. The vegetation peaks and valleys could not be seen clearly, only some big mountains could be seen, winding like a black dragon. Tian always does not hesitate to spend mana, stealth flight, in order to do extremely hidden, did not borrow more labor-saving Dun Tiansuo. More than 10 days later, looking up, Tian finally saw the dense meteorites passing by in the far distance, flying around with frightening momentum, and the dimly visible void cracks, just like the terrible mouth, showing the ferocious fangs in the sky. Tian is suspended in the air, swallowing a drop of nature liquid to restore his mana to its peak state, breathing out a long breath, and his eyes twinkle. It's going to be a risky journey. Here, Tian can't help sighing again that the entrance to the heaven and earth where the Xian family is located is really hidden. If he didn't get the news, I'm afraid it would take him a long time to find it. On the whole, Yunzhong helped himself a lot. Tian is not the first to experience turbulence and meteorite in the void. He continued to fly upward, releasing his mind, observing the nearby void cracks, and the source I continued to shine through, avoiding those invisible void cracks. Tian guessed that the entrance of the Xuanjia's space could not go deep into the void. Otherwise, the Xuanjia's frequent entry and exit would not be hurt by the turbulence of the space and the cracks of the void. In this way, they would lose their hidden significance. Sure enough, after flying more than 10 miles, Tian found a void crack densely distributed. With a glance, there were 13 cracks in the void, which was consistent with what Yunzhong said. Looking at its shape and arrangement position, it is also completely consistent with the mark in the jade slip that Yunzhong depicted for himself. Tian's eyes coagulate, his eyes slowly slide through many void cracks, and finally look to the third void crack on the left. If the information in the jade slips is correct, this void crack is the entrance to the Xuanjia space. As expected, it is hard to distinguish between the false and the true. This void crack is half-moon-shaped, about half a meter long and about 2 meters wide. Among the void cracks Tian has seen, it is not big or small, ordinary, and has no significant difference. There seems to be no difference with the surrounding void cracks. Inside, it is a gray color with dense clouds. At this time, Tian became more and more cautious, controlled his breath and did not reveal anything. He used his eyes to look around carefully, and did not find the existence of the invisible man of the Xuanjia family. Then he took out a prepared stone and threw it into a void crack nearby. Ka! At the moment when the stone is put into the crack, it makes a click. The strong space rolling force turns the stone into a piece of stone powder and disappears in the crack. What a strong space rolling force! Tian whispered and looked at the void crack he was going to enter. Then he took out a stone and threw it into it. Sure enough, there was no space-crushing force in this void crack. When the stone entered it, it didn't make any sound, but it disappeared immediately. These two stones are not ordinary rocks, but turbulent meteorites captured by Tian after he entered the void. Even if this stone startled the Xuanjia people inside, it can only be regarded as turbulent meteorites inadvertently flying into the void cracks without any doubt. After throwing it into the stone, Tian was invisible, watching and waiting quietly. Until more than half an hour, there was no sound coming from the void crack, and no one from the Xian family appeared. Tian was a little relieved. Then, he called a heartworm and drove it to the void crack. This lianxin insect is a mutated 4-star lianxin insect. Although its body is small, it is also very strong. After entering the void crack, the picture in Yi Tian's mind suddenly turns into a blue and gray color. However, after counting the breath, he is bright in front of his eyes and sees different scenes. The picture shows that it is a tall gate. The city gate is made of huge black stone. There are a few walls on both sides extending into the gray space. It seems that the entrance of this void crack is only closed. The rest of the place are heavy space barriers, showing a chaotic state. The gate goes directly above the space, completely closing the limited space. There is a huge stone plaque on the wide gate, on which 6 characters, the first family of Taigu, are carved. On both sides of the city gate, there are also carved a line of vertical typesetting characters. On the left side, there are Xuanjia's important place. The inscription on the right is, "Intruders die." At the gate of the city, no one was seen. Real hammer. Yi Tian's eyes are eager, and his thoughts move. He calls back Liang Xingkong. Seeing that the worm is as good as ever and has no injury, he can't help but feel more at ease about the safety of void cracks. At this time, he had no doubt that this was the entrance of Xuanjia space, but it didn't seem so easy to enter. I'll have to wait until I go in and have a look. Having made up his mind, Yi Tian, who has always been invisible, carefully observes the surroundings again, and then his figure flashes into the void crack. There is no force of space crushing, only the force of space attraction is not so strong. Yi Tian feels the gray color in front of him. He lets go of his body and lets gravity pull him through the short space passage. Then when his eyes light up, he is already in the city gate scene in the picture. Standing still at the gate for a moment, Yi Tian didn't find any abnormal situation. He began to see the gate and the wall from the sky. After thorough investigation, Yi Tian's face began to become extremely ugly. The wall is more than 5 feet thick. From the inside to the outside, it is made of black stone. Even the largest city Yi Tian has ever seen is far less than this. The gate of the city wall is divided into 2 pieces, 3 feet thick. The top of the gate is connected with the black stone on the ground. There is no gap. I don't know what material it is made of. It looks very strong. Even the black stone on the ground is tens of feet thick. In this case, it is impossible to use it. Moreover, through the surface of the stone wall, Yi Tian can see countless blue-gray lines flashing in the wall, which are mixed with many kinds of runes. This situation shows that there are defensive fields inside. This is not only true of the city wall, but also of the inner side of the gate. Because the gate is much thinner than the city wall, this protective field is not hidden in the gate, but arranged inside the gate. That is to say, even if you want to enter the interior of the space through the gate, you still have to go through the defensive field. If it's a bare field without any protection, Yi Tian can handle it better. But this kind of field, which is protected by the city walls and gates, is very difficult. Not to mention whether it can break the field, it is very difficult for Yi Tian not to disturb the Xian family. Anyone can get close and unobstructed access to the field. The difficulty lies in that it should be carried out secretly and not disturb the Xian family. Otherwise, the Xian family will take preventive measures, and the future actions will become extremely difficult, even life-threatening. After seeing these situations clearly, Yi Tian did not rush to study this field, but Yuan Tian's eye penetrated through the gate and continued to look inside. Unlike the void crack passage, the city gate is a completely different world. The light is extremely bright, not far away streams murmur, rockery water, pavilions, from the gate of a black stone road has been extended to the distance. In the distance, the green hill is faint, and you can see the hazy shadow of a city. It was one of the 8 cities of Xuanjia. Heaven and earth are dark and yellow, and the universe is vast and barren. The barren city is the one at the entrance. In an exquisite attic more than 10 feet away from the gate of the city, through the pavilion, Yi Tian also sees 2 young friars in Xuanjia's unique costumes meditating with their knees crossed. It should be the Zhijing pavilion marked by Yun Zhong in the map, which is specially responsible for guarding the city gate and patrolling the rest place. It is basically impossible for such a city gate to pass without any sound, even if it is guarded by monks. No wonder Yun Zhong repeatedly advised himself not to come hard. If regardless of the consequences, break down the gate or the wall, and then break through the field, Yi Tian is still easy to do. At least Yi Tian released his mini phoenix to burn a hole in the gate. It's easy to dig out holes in the bluestone and enter it with a fierce flying sword. But this is not the way to do things. We must not scare the snake. What should we do? Tian stood outside the gate and began to ponder. A moment later, Tian put down all his thoughts, continued to shine through the source sky's eyes, and carefully observed the defensive field. In any case, we should understand the field first. If we really can't, we can't solve it by any means, so we have to find a chance to do it hard. In the sight, those runes in blue and gray lines are dense, and they don't move back and forth, and the blue and gray lines are not a single layer, but overlapping, at least 4 or 5 feet thick. There are also lines and runes between each layer, which are related to each other, echoing each other, continuous and extremely mysterious. As Tian observes, he contrasts with those ancient strange formations in his mind. After a while, Tian's frown gradually unfolded, but soon after, the dark color became more and more dignified. He has found information about this field. In ancient books, the field name is Divine Prohibition. But this field has a strong defense, which can block the attack of the great friars in Yupu. This is not to mention that if someone touches this field, the field will emit a buzzing vibration sound, which has the effect of warning at any time. The only gate of this field is set at the gate, which can be opened from inside to outside, but the technique is different. The difficulty of getting rid of this field is that the gate of the field, whether it starts from the inside or opens from the outside, needs to enter the city gate first. Moreover, even if the field is open normally, it will cause the vibration sound of the field, which is definitely a very troublesome thing. I really don't know who the ancestor of the Tian family was. He was able to find such a space and then set up such a difficult field. Seeing through this field, Tian is still a little worried. Is meditating, Tian suddenly move, body shape to the side to avoid. In the light of Tian's eyes, he saw several light escape flying from a distance and falling outside the Zhijing pavilion. A monk inside stepped out quickly, talked with those people for a few words, and then came to the city gate. Seeing this, Tian couldn't help flashing his eyes, and his heart was filled with excitement, but his eyes were always focused on the monk in front of him. It was a middle-aged monk with a good-looking appearance. He walked straight to the field without strabismus. With a gesture, 3 magic powers hit the field one after another. In the eyes of the source heaven, the forbidden field was just countless lines and runes, but in the eyes of the monk, the lines and runes did not exist, because he could not see them at all. Presented in front of him is a very transparent, if not heavy shield. But Tian can see clearly that the 3 magic powers are clearly hit on the 3 runes, which are different from other runes. The other runes are constantly wandering, but these 3 runes are always there. This method of opening the field is slightly different from that introduced in ancient books, but Tian has firmly remembered the 3 runes and the order of the magic power. As recorded in ancient books, when the 3 magic powers were hit, the 3 runes suddenly made a violent buzzing vibration. With the vibration of the whole field, the heavy door slowly opened, and the monk who opened the field made a pleased gesture to the outside. The 5 monks who followed him nodded slightly to him and jumped out from the inside. Just after the last person came out of the gate, Tian's body quickly floated, quietly entered from the half-open gate, and quickly left the area near the gate. The monk who opened the door didn't feel it. After closing the door quickly, he went back to Zhijing Pavilion and continued to meditate. At this time, Tian Kai took a long breath. He felt very lucky that he was so prepared. Unexpectedly, he used this method to enter the space where Xuanjia was. Xuanjia's field layout is very strict, but the defense is extremely lax. It's too funny to mix in. It is very likely that for countless years, no one has been able to enter the city gate through the void cracks, and no one has been able to successfully break into the Tian family. Therefore, over time, the watchers of the gate have a paralyzed mind. Anyway, Tian has finally entered this space, and the first step has been successfully completed. However, although the protection of the Tian family is lax, Tian's heart is not relaxed. The Tian family doesn't know how many great friars in Yupu realm exist. If they are lax at this time, they will be very happy and sad. Tian hides his body and keeps his breath from leaking. He decides a route and flies to the distance by comparing with the map in his mind. There are many figures in the space of more than 3,000 li. In fact, it doesn't take much time for Tian to travel all over Xuanjia. But for the sake of safety, Tian can never let go of full speed. He just controls the speed, does not cause any difference in the flight, straight to the direction of Tiancheng. Along the way, Tian met many Xuanjie children flying around in the sky, but they were all cleverly avoided by him and did not show any trace. However, only the children of the Xian family he met also gave Tian a better understanding of the strength of the Xian family. There were more than 40 people met, including 3 in Washingjing, 17 or 18 in Yuanyingjing, and the rest were monks in Jindan and Dongfu. Among other things, these people alone, if put outside, can definitely form a large family. This is only a small part of Xuanjie's strength, and how many strong are still unknown. Half an hour later, the shadow of Tiancheng was in the distance. At this point, more and more monks came and went. From time to time, the figure of the children of the Xian family flashed by from afar. Tianyuan's eye shone more carefully towards Tiancheng. It's a city built with big black stones. It's not very big within a radius of tens of miles, but the wall is very high. It's more than 10 feet long and looks majestic. It's just that the color is a little old. It's obvious that it's been eroded by countless years, leaving traces of years. The gate of the city is very wide, and there is no watcher in imagination. All the children of the Xian family can go in and out freely. But all the way, including near the gate of the city, Tian saw that the children of the Xian family were more men than women, and less than 20% of them were nuns. The city was empty. In addition to some low-level Xuanjie children walking through the gate, he also saw some Yuanyingjing and Washingjing Xuanjie children flying by in the air. He didn't know where they had gone. After observing for a while, he did not find any prohibition in the air, so he was ready to fly into the city from the sky. Suddenly, he saw many Duanguang flying towards the city from afar. Dozens of them were monks in Yuanyingjing. Tian restrained his breath until those people flew by. Tian relaxed a little. Is the Cloud family that troublesome? So many people still need to be mobilized? Tian gang wants to fly to the city again, but suddenly he hears 2 Xuanjie children on the ground talking while walking. This topic just aroused Tian's interest. He slowly fell down and began to follow the 2 men. They were both middle-aged and dressed the same way. One was a little fat and the other was a little thin. It was the fat man who was talking, but when he heard what he said, the friar said, "It should be. I don't know about the general situation. I heard that Shanling, Shanwei, Shanjiang and Shangang all fell when they were chasing the Cloud family. Several ancestors were very angry and went out of the space to arrest the murderer. Including this time, the family should have sent out thousands of people. It's not worth the loss in such a big battle. Brother 18, is that right? What's the good for the Xian family if they fight inside and then fight outside? It's said that the side branch has also suffered a lot, causing quite a stir." The fat man whispered. "Shoo," the skinny friar quickly hissed. His eyes coldly stopped the fat man's words, and said in a lower voice, 96, "Don't talk about clan affairs. We can't manage these things. Don't be used the clan rules carelessly. Did not see Xin Crack Taigon to be used clan rules, is still in custody? It's like this in the realm of God, not to mention our little Jindan people." The fat man nodded quickly and said in a low voice, "I know the weight of it. There are no outsiders here. I dare to talk with Brother 18. Do you think that Xuanxia Taigon will really kill Xianton, the collateral branch?" Fart. The friar disdained to spit out a word.